Oh, there we go. Well, welcome to Saving Nerkish, the the season finale.
Is that
Now,
it?
now, now you say something.
Oh, well, I thought you're the host. Usually hosts like in with me, blah blah blah. You
Oh,
just
I'm
went
sorry. Okay, okay.
you're doing it like a line read, like I have to read my lines next.
I know,
You
I
know?
know. We've been reading lines. Well, I'm Doug Tenaple. This is my show, Doug in Exile. We've been doing for those of you who are subscribers to my channel. A long time ago, Nurkish and I met online. I've never seen him. Maybe once I saw him. Um, and he was would you call yourself an atheist back then, or were you agnostic?
I mean, I think it's agnostic, but it might as well be atheist.
Agnostic's like a fake atheist, though.
I think it's because when I think of atheist, I think more like it's almost like a religion. So it wasn't like
Yeah,
fanatical about like not believing in God, so it
yeah.
wasn't like that. It was just,
When I think of atheist, I think of asshole, and agnostic is a nicer one.
yeah.
Okay. So so we would do these episodes. I don't remember how many we did, like maybe 10? Did we do 10?
It feels like there was more, but maybe
I think
10,
we
I
might have
don't
gotten
know.
to 18. But we would meet every once in a while, and I would just hard witness to Nurkish and share the gospel, right?
Yeah. And I'd ask a bunch of like, you know, not gotcha questions, but
But
I guess
ignorant.
like atheist questions that had popped in my head about just like technicalities and stuff like that.
Super ignorant. And do you want to spill the beans on everybody? Do you want to just blow it out there? Or you want me
I don't
to
know.
just
You could
trust me, there's never a nice way to say it. How's that?
say what?
Say where you're at. Where are you at? I always say, are you on first base, second base, or is it a home run yet?
It's a home run.
Okay, so you're in.
Yeah. I've accepted Jesus.
Nurkish, he's laughing when he says it because he knows how
Well,
terrible he
it
sounds.
just if it's awkward saying it, because I'm not used to it, like all the nomenclature and the stuff you say, like I'm still getting used to it. But it's also that I don't feel like I'm a good, Christian in the sense that I have anything really.
You're a
I don't have any
terrible one.
I don't have any particular wisdom to bestow or like anything that was gleaned once I crossed that Rubicon. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
knowledge was.
So we're going to break that out. This show will be as long as we want it to be. When you have to go, you got to go because you had to put the kids in the tub. You got to put them to bed, whatever.
Mhm.
So we're just going to do a quick kind of update on everything because this has been a 5-year journey, right? We started in 2018. We've had Michael J. Nelson on the channel. We've had Amy Hall from Stand to Reason, whom you've been in contact with.
Mhm.
And this kind of goes into a lot of that. But you and I have also offline had just tons of phone calls where we just hang out. Like it's not always about
No, yeah,
faith,
we
but
just
we talk
BS.
about everything.
Yeah.
So, so now you're a Christian. How many days old are you?
One.
One day.
Well, I don't know. Would it be from when I said like the sinner's prayer or something? I mean, that
Yeah.
feels like
Yeah.
it's
What's the
where
date
you're
of the sinner's prayer?
the day before the so 2 days.
So 2 days.
Yeah.
So you're a brand new, spanking new Christian. Um, we'll find out if this lasts.
Oh, okay.
Let's
Well,
find
that's
out.
always that. But yesterday you're like, oh, thank you, Jesus.
I
And right
am.
now you're already.
I celebrate. I take the win. Take the win. And we did. We prayed together, and I told some of our mutual friends. We have lots of mutual friends, kind of working on this whole thing. Talking because it's mostly talking about faith, like talking about is the Bible true? Is Jesus real? What is God? What is morality? What's wrong with the world, right?
Yeah. I will say the Jesus part was the longest. So the give me to the God and morality was not, that was the easiest steps to going to like, why does God need to then be incarnate and, like die and stuff. That's
Right.
the otter leap to kind of go, well, you have to kind of mull it
So
over.
you came to third base pretty quick. So I'll tell you guys my baseball analogy is because I was just trying, it was tough getting Nurkish to first base. First base was just admitting that there was objective morality.
Only because I was being logically consistent though. So like, you know, you've had friends who've been like, oh, well, he condoned baby murder. And it's like, no, it's just going, if I'm saying that morality is subjective, the conclusion would then be that I think baby murder is wrong, or I think whatever is wrong, but I can't say it's any worse than like an animal killing his children. You know, that was my logic at the time.
But we've met people that would not even say that baby murder was wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I think I just now got this whole show demonetized, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I forget that you were on YouTube and you have like words you can't say.
I want to make my money.
Sorry.
I got to make it off your back.
Okay. I'll try to be more clean, I guess.
Yeah, just, you can do whatever. I don't care. I'd rather, people got to tell the truth, right? So, but we do cuss a lot when we're offline.
Yeah.
I guess I want to find out about your past, because you had a tough past.
Yeah.
Without getting into too much detail, just so people realize where you came from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Broken home.
Broken makes it sound like my parents got divorced or something, but it was not. It was a turbulent home. Like my dad, he's like a angry boomer, a bit like bigot type guy. He's a Vietnam vet. I think we were technically like his second family, which I just happened to find out one day. Like it was like, oh yeah, you got a half sister in the story, and that was that. I think I found out when I was 10. The story with how he left his previous family was he got drunk one day, broke his wife's jaw, and then just hitchhiked down like to South Florida where he met my mom and started another family.
So rough family upbringing. Yeah. And so when I met you, you had just come online. We had met through this Comicsgate comic book fake conservative scam movement.
Yeah.
And you're one of the few things that I took with me out of that. Mm-hmm. So we kept kind of loose in contact, and we would hang out online. We did some Mike Nelson shows and stuff. What was the first, because first base is morality, which I would attribute to you just being a father and having kids, married father. Was that what really secured the morality thing?
Kids were the red pill. Yeah. So which is why I think another reason, like, the culture is really kind of going, don't have families, don't have kids. And then you see trends where it's like people who don't have kids are becoming less conservative as they get older. I think it's because that is a huge tipping point. You know what I mean? Like having kids really, it's a meme, like it's a cliche, but it's true because, and it's not just so much like, oh, I have these little things that love me. And it really is like, it's like seeing in a whole nother dimension. And then you have to start thinking about the way you live your life, what you want to teach them, and how that actually has implications for the world. So it's not enough to say like, be kind or do this or that. You have to think about how you want to, want them to live. And then you also have to kind of embody that.
Yeah.
And you can't fakely embody that. You can't have like hollow morality and then just be like, I'm doing this because I don't think you should be mean to people or something. You have to kind of understand it. So yeah, kids are a huge thing.
And my own background is I was raised by an atheist dad. Now he came from a Pentecostal background, and he just said, it was totally fraud. He just goes, I'm done with that. I'm raising my kids atheist. Well, I was picked up by a Nazarene church bus that started bringing me to this hokey little Nazarene church, where I became a Christian. And then my mom became a Christian. My brother became a Christian. And then, but I had kind of a crisis of faith shortly after college. Right around when I got married, I was like done with it. And I started going into apologetics, which is my kind of journey through the 90s, is reading not just apologetics, but like Aristotle and Pascal and kind of the thinkers, When did you believe in God? Because that was still another step. That would be third base, is God. What convinced you of God?
I think the morality led there, but I think it's also, you and I have talked about this. It's kind of like the culture a bit, because it's almost like there's like a God-shaped hole in the culture. So it's more about the way, like, I don't agree with the culture. I don't like the culture. And I think what's left out of the culture almost creates like a perfect God-shaped hole. So you start going like, well, why are they so against this? And why, so it kind of started leading me in that direction. my main thing with not feeling like I can't really talk about anything, or I'm not a good authority or worth listening to about it, is because there was no. It's not a process of logic that led me there. That necessarily, it was just kind of some things I kind of just intuited based on like how I'm feeling about things, and the leap to God was kind of there. Like it was the morality gelled because it was going. I'm living my life one way, and I'm not. It's not jiving with that. I'm not behaving in a way of what I actually believe. Yeah. So I had to get that in line, and then you start following that. And it's like, well, then there has to be some sort of like root cause of all this. You know what I mean? And then God's like kind of, you can almost logically work your way back to God
because of a creator. Creation has to have a creator.
Yeah. So it was a bit of logic there, but also it is a bit of also just culture, and what culture is saying to do is so like inverted from the Bible.
No, it makes it easy. Makes my job easy.
Yeah, and then you also have to look at the values lining up then. So if I'm looking at culture and going like, I don't like any of this, the opposite of that is almost what's laid out in the Bible. So then I'm like, well, then I do like all this, and this does seem like the best way to live your life. And I could speak from like personal experience that it is the best way to like it does have results. So there is a result there that you do get better, and you do change your outlook on things.
So that's another supreme victory. And this might be the greatest defense of wokeism and our terrible satanic culture, is that it drove you to God. Like I would see you furious with the way things were going, like just going, why is that? Why that? Why that? And so that starts to describe, well, why would you have that conviction in your heart?
Well, it ties back to the kids too, because I don't think I'd be feeling as strongly about certain things if it wasn't that I had children. If I was just some man baby that played video games or something, I would maybe gripe about like, I don't like they did this to my, dumb hobby, but I have children. I have to I want them to have a certain set of ideals and worldview. And when the culture is telling them to do the opposite, it starts to, it becomes a little grating, and that's when you kind of start getting infuriated with stuff, or it becomes more than just like some grumbling, complaining.
So morality is pretty easy.
Yeah.
God as a creator, I think, is easy. I think it's pretty easily demonstrated that a creator made this, and that would also explain why there would be morality. But like you said, the big jump, the hard one, was Jesus. You can get a pass if you're just some loose kind of, I like this general God who just kind of likes good, Jesus is the hard one. So what happened there?
Well, this is where I feel like I'm inept to talk on.
This is 3 days ago.
Yeah. So. Well, it's just this is where like it's not a deeply profound story. I do feel like I'm blessed in a sense. So like one of the things that I think keeps me grounded is growing up from like essentially white trash. And like. Not to get too into it, but like my dad was pretty rough. My sister was like died essentially because of drugs recently, and then my mom's like, so it's like the fact that even
I was there through all that too, and it was I could hear you just frustrated.
Yeah, and just sometimes
you
I
can't
look
fix
at
them.
Yeah, and then you start feeling bad about feelings you have towards your own family and stuff like that. But it's like I do feel blessed to just be where I'm at with my family and my life. Like this is the kind of stuff I would have dreamed about as a kid, like, being poor. So, I do think there's a blessing there. And then sometimes I'm like, is this like a divine thing? And like getting to Jesus, I think it was a lot. For one, Jesus requires a, discipline. It's a narrow path. And I think that's very appealing to me. I don't like this general, like new age kind of like God and karma and do what feels good and treat others good, because that doesn't seem that's not reality. You know what I mean? Like nothing in reality works like that. Like just be a good person and based on feelings or something. Like it's not, all that new age stuff doesn't really jive.
In reality, 2 + 2 is 4, and there's an infinite number of wrong answers. There's one correct answer. So that tells you a little something about truth. It's like this apple is either in my hand or it is not. And then C.S. Lewis did that Lord, Liar, Lunatic thing, where you can't just ever say that Jesus is just a good teacher if he was not God, because he claimed to be God. he could not be a good teacher. He'd be a liar.
Mhm.
He'd be a lord, a liar, or he was crazy. He'd be a lunatic, like if he believed it, but it wasn't true. And so that starts to constrain this soft Jesus that I don't think is an option.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say it's mostly prayer. I mean, I've
And
been praying.
you were telling me that you were praying a lot, and
Yeah.
that was the first text that I got from you a while ago, and it was going,
Yeah.
holy cow, he's praying, and I would tell Angie, he's praying.
So, I mean, like, I have a friend who's like, yeah, I have a lot of friends like this, but like they're millennials. Have all, X amount of mental disorders, or they have anxiety or depression or whatever, nonsense thing they want to, gripe about. And I'm not saying those things don't exist. I just think they're severely overdiagnosed, or people use them as a crutch a lot. But, I mean, I've improved my own mental well-being just through like changing outlook, getting sleep, being healthier, having a family. So that just got me, it kind of showed me already. But the fact that like me praying the way I'd feel when I pray, and then afterwards, I don't know how to put it. It's like that. I'm not one to give into a bunch of like cultist stuff or groupthink or anything like that. So for me to feel certain ways after I pray, or notice its effect on me, I think is like, that's fairly profound to me. Because I'm nearly middle age. I know myself. I know my faults. So
how did you? So you're communicating to someone, to the Creator, in a prayer.
yeah, and so that's the thing too. Like I do reference Jesus in the prayers too. So it's like in my mind, the first things that I start going, well, I was like, well, if I'm praying to like Allah, I don't think Allah would be like, yeah, get this, Jesus stuff. Like, why are you comparing him to me? Like, if I'm praying incorrectly to God, who is not, Jesus, like if it's not encompassed in Christianity, I feel like my prayers would not feel the way they were, and they wouldn't be answered the way they are. And it kind of just led me to that path. But then also just like tracing everything back, when you start looking down the road of your life, like backwards, there's those moments where you're kind of going like, I don't know, it all just seems a little too, it can't just be coincidence. It just feels like odd. But this is what I don't feel like I have the language to like communicate effectively how it happened, because it's kind of just like, it's not like I was like clobbered on the head, or, I saw a vision or anything. It's just one day something switched, and I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I know what it was. I'm not going to go in depth about, like the prayer I had, but it's just like, I prayed and then something kind of happened, and it wasn't like, I wasn't going like, let me win this game, or let me, it wasn't something super trivial, but like what I was anxious and stressed about, it did get better. And I'm just like, I can't, now I feel like I have to uphold my end of the bargain. Like I have to actually commit to this and think about it, and, like take it seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you believe in what culture considers ridiculous. It's one thing to say you believe in God. It's another thing to say you believe in a God who came in human form, died for your sins out of necessity, bodily resurrected from the dead, rose, to heaven, and will raise you to heaven. That's been 3 days. How hard is all that to swallow?
Well, I'll say that. So like initially when I met you, there were moments where I'm kind of going like, ugh. Like not like that you believed in God, but the idea that like sometimes people will be like, oh, he's just turn him into a Jesus freak, or blah, 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 like to make comments about us talking, and then be like, ooh. But then I'd almost lean into it because I felt that way. Because I'd be like, oh, well, why do I feel that way? So then I just lean the opposite direction back into it, because I'm like, well, then screw that. But
you do become a Jesus freak. It's like,
well, yeah, but it's like,
because he turns you into someone that believes in a God who comes in the form of a man and dies for your sin. That's what you believe. You believe something very, I don't just think it's strange or weird. I think they call it the greatest story ever told. I study screenwriting and storytelling in my graphic novels and my writing. And it is an amazing story. Just from a plot standpoint, you go, why is it so dramatic and so bizarre? Because the greatest being that could ever be imagined lowers himself to become a man, and then just the death, the idea that he's persecuted and is saving the people that are killing him and stuff. The drama is insane. It's like the best drama. If you made a story up, it would be the greatest story ever told. It's shocking.
Well, also that it's kind of like oddly reenacted through his followers, I think is, I mean, obviously not to the same extent, but the fact that it's like becoming Christian is not like very in vogue, and you're somehow just it's not fashionable. You always kind of be persecuted in some regard, or like spat on. So it's like it is a bit of like I don't know. It's a bit poetic. That
Yeah. Did you ever see The Count of Monte Cristo?
no.
Okay. In that movie, the Count, he ends up meeting with these pirates, and one of them is Jacopo, that Luis Guzman, the Hispanic actor, kind of fat. He plays Jacopo, and Jacopo is a pirate where they have him fight Jim Caviezel, the Count of Monte Cristo, who later plays Jesus. And Jim Caviezel easily beats him, right? He has a knife to his throat. And the pirate captain says, go ahead and kill my crewman because you defeated him in battle. Go ahead and kill him. And the Jim Caviezel Count of Monte Cristo goes, why should I kill him? Let's spare him. You'll look compassionate, and your men will be loyal to you, and he will be loyal for life. And he agrees. He goes, okay, we won't kill him. And Jacopo looks up at the Count of Monte Cristo and he goes, I will serve you forever. Like once you're saved by Jesus, once you understand what he did for you, I'll take any amount of ridicule. It's like, because I'm so convinced of what he did, I don't care. Because like, what's this stupid online troll who discredits himself even for being online? Yeah. Why am I afraid of him? Or why am I afraid of this other person sharing the gospel with them when they didn't? I'm convinced they didn't save me. In fact, they didn't do much for me. And then this Jesus person did everything, gave us all. Mm-hmm. So that's where the loyalty and the lack of shame comes from. And especially how discredited the world is. Like, why is anyone, bowing to the world and afraid of what the world thinks of them? The world has drag queen story hour.
Yeah, you
saw the Grammys? Did you guys see the Grammys?
Well, that's one of the big things to me is like, I remember, I'm already bracing for it because I know it's going to come. My in-laws are like staunch atheists and, the complete midwits with a lot of that stuff. And I just don't, that's another thing though. It's like you're looking at it, but like you said, it's like, if I were to say I'm Christian to them, I feel like I get scoffs of derision and, whatever, like I'm saying the craziest thing. But
those who are in Christ Jesus will be persecuted.
But meanwhile, they would praise stuff like what you're saying. Like, so it's just going like, it's insane that I would believe in Christ, but, I guess drag queen story hour is great. It's fine.
And you're not allowed to criticize it. Yeah. They're allowed to criticize your decision.
Well, Christ. Also they're
insane.
The other thing is like, I said it, but like the outline of things. So I have a lot of atheist friends and I have like, a gay friend and all this. And it's like that their scorn for Christianity isn't just because it's like they think this group doesn't like me or whatever. It's like a innate thing that's just like repellent to them. It's almost like they're like spitting in the face of God or trying to like get his attention or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's not so much just because I talk to my friend about that all the time. He doesn't like the idea, the whole like gays don't go to heaven or what. He's like really upset about that. And I was like, but you're not religious. Why does that upset you? And he's just like, I don't like it. But I'm like, it'd be like if you came up with a fairy tale land and then said, I'm not going there. I wouldn't care. Like if I genuinely didn't believe in what you were saying and you were telling me I'm not going to planet XB9 or something, I'm like, okay, that's fine. Yeah. So I think it's a little bit more because he wasn't persecuted or attacked or anything. It's not personal. I think it's that deep down they know that there's a truth there. You know what I mean? I think we're all born with that.
Yeah, they protesteth too much. It's not a measured response, people's response to the belief in if Jesus is a fairy tale. They sure don't act like it. And all gays go to hell or whatever. It's not gays. It's everyone goes there who doesn't accept Jesus. So
well,
it's not like they were selected out. It's they won't repent.
Yeah, that's the toughest thing too, is like I've tried to explain even before, I've tried to explain like it's not that whoever you think is attacking you thinks they're better than you. It's that we're all capable of sin and you're just not, you know what I mean? Like you're not repenting for it. So it's
Yeah.
not that like Bob that goes to church every Sunday is better than you. He could be just as worse or capable of worse. It's just that he's not reveling in his sin, or supposedly not reveling in his sin. So that's the cross line. You're not even. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like you're a junkie.
That's the
and
thing.
then
Even my kids don't understand. They think like, how can you be, say, a bad dad, or how can you be bad whatever? And I just go, I'm not good. I'm not saved because of how good I am. If anything, the Bible says when we are weak, he is made strong. It is in understanding how weak and fallen you are Jesus there was a tax collector that said, he beat his chest and said, "Forgive me, a sinner." And there was a Pharisee that said, "Thank you, God, that I'm not as bad as him." Mm-hmm. And Jesus said, that tax collector, that guy, that's my guy.
Yeah.
It's the repentant person because he can't work with a guy that goes around going, "I don't need to repent."
Yeah. Yeah. Which I've noticed a lot. Like I've talked to my neighbors. One of my neighbors, he won't elaborate, but he said he used to be in some sort of like religious cult, like some sort of Christian cult, but he's very atheist now. And he the stuff they say sometimes is so insane, but he's just like, well, you should just live for yourself and do whatever you want. I'm like, do you understand what the world would be like if we did that? Like, do you not hear yourself? Like, it sounds like that sounds insane to me, rather than you saying you believe in like Christ or something, just the idea of going, we should all just live for ourselves and dictate what, whatever. I mean, even my in-laws I was telling you about, I got into a morality, or like not even an argument, but like a back and forth with them. And then the conclusion they came to was basically, they said, well, morality is just like a democratic process. And it's whatever is, the norm at the time. And I'm like, that's like building your house on like shifting sand or something. What does that mean? That means nothing then. What are you imparting to your children?
Yeah, that was something that J.P. Moreland once said, is he goes, telling your kids just like 80 on earth, in a few years, and life has no meaning, is not much of a lesson to teach your kids. He was specifically appealing to atheists at the time, going like, you're going to raise your kids that essentially or as Dawkins said, we're an accident in the backwater. There's no transcendent meaning. And or that when the atheist would say, how can someone say that there's a good God when they're holding a dead baby in their arms, a child that just died? And he goes, well, how can you tell that person that there is no God and there's no meaning, and even your mourning is like abstract, like has no real importance or meaning? So that like even your feelings for this mass of molecules, that's just molecules. Why are you crying over molecules? It doesn't make sense. And it starts to demand, the evidence starts to mount up all of these things into the story of Christianity. So I don't know if we got to wrap it up yet, but I wanted to get to one more question about, what would you say, because there's people that are going to be watching this that are lost, like they probably have a vague sense of morality like you did, that there's good and evil. They probably believe there's a God creator, but why pull the trigger on Jesus?
Oh, that's what I'm
going to force you into the most difficult thing a Christian can do, which is witness on your third day in.
I can't give you any sort of textual. I mean, like I've been reading and I listen to the Stand to Reason stuff, and and I can't give you any sort of textual argument because there's nothing there. I'd say the search is the meaning. And I know that sounds silly, but it's like, if you're searching, that's already the reason. Because I mean,
believe that.
Like you said, that like the 5 years, I didn't stop with just going, well, there's a God, and then like put books down. It wasn't enough. I had to find more and hash it out more. And it's because I knew there was something else there. So it's not. I mean, obviously, it's good to be like well read and learn more and try to like tease out some, because I have a lot of questions still. So it's not like I'm just gonna lay those to rest or anything like that. It's good to tease things out.
I could tell when I first met you that you were a seeker, like a real one, like on a quest. And I go, well, he's probably already in.
Yeah, it gets to that to where you're almost like, I mean, we talked about before, like the weird, if you were to look back on your life, it's almost like you could kind of, like if you're watching the story of your life as somebody else, and you would almost go like, he's going to find Christ.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you would already know the story, you would know where it's going to end up leading. Because I was thinking even like the first time, like I'm not a huge Earthworm Jim guy or anything like that. That's not why we...
Nor should you be.
No, it's not. But I'm just saying that's not why we became friends
Right.
or anything like that. But I was thinking like the first time I remember hearing about Earthworm Jim was I was at... I was, being like a white trash kid and all that stuff. There was a religious family, like a deeply, deeply Christian religious family that lived like 2 doors down, and their parents would make them play with me because they didn't want them to be mean or anything. So they're trying to be Christian. And I remember being in their house.
With that screwed up Nurkish kid.
Yeah. And I remember being in their house and one of the boys, like the older brother, was drawing Earthworm Jim. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, oh, so even like my first memory of you is like associated with like deeply Christian people. And I don't know if I don't know enough about you to like know that if when you're doing that, you were out as a huge Christian, and maybe that's why they thought it was okay that. But I think it's just because
I was
the
always
game
pretty out.
I don't know. I just feel like maybe it's just because the game was out, because I mean, we would draw it from Game Informer and whatever the video, Gaming Monthly or whatever. And I just think that's an odd kind of thing, like the Mike Nelson thing, like
Mike Nelson. And that was another weird thing is I met him through Stand to Reason. So Stand to Reason is a radio show or a podcast now. It's an apologetics ministry that I help support. And I was on the radio show once. I would just call in and ask Greg random Bible questions. And Mike Nelson had heard me on the show and called me and said, work on Mystery Science Theater at the time, or Riff Tracks or whatever. And I'm a Christian. And he just wanted to hang. And we ended up becoming best friends. I'm also friends with Greg Kokel and all those Stand to Reason gang. You've talked to Amy Hall on the side, and you've been listening to Greg Kokel's Bible Fast Forward, which is kind of an overview of the entire Bible.
The Old Testament.
Yeah. So it's weird how we're all, me, you, Mike Nelson, Greg Kokel, Amy Hall, we're all kind of connected in a weird way through what appears to be free will, but really it also looks like something was cooked in the books happening all the way back then.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, it's like I was saying earlier today, it almost feels like we're just like water, and, like God doesn't really like act through us, like controlling us like puppets, but it's kind of like he just creates these channels and he's like, you go this way, and then you're just, you have free will to do what you want. But I mean, there's like a path that the optimal path that you need to go down, I mean, it's just like something's there and you need to be able to kind of follow it, because it's not that Mike really witnessed that well, because I don't think he did, but I think I know, but nothing against Mike, but I'm just saying, like,
if you hang out with him, he's a profound theologian. He's profound.
No, I know he's smart and all that. I'm just saying,
really smart. Yeah.
I think at the time it was just more like, because I grew up a huge Mystery Science Theater fan, so I think at the time, if you were not going to get like atheist Nurkish to consider something more strongly, or like go to, because I think that was one of the bit, like, I think if you had just said do Saving Nerkish, I don't know if I would have done it initially if you didn't have Mike there. Like, I don't know if it would have been a selling point that was just you and me.
Yeah, I might have even told Mike that back at the time. I go like, look, he'll probably come on if you come on. So let's go. Let's get this guy.
And then after a point, obviously, it was like, we did it without him. And I think Amy is probably the strongest in terms, because that's what she does for a living. But,
she's good too. So Amy Hall, who I follow on Twitter, is a good friend. And I told her that you got saved, and she told me she was teary-eyed and just really, and she's another profound thinker, like very well read, knows her stuff. I don't just mean like in some intellectual way. I just mean like in deep wisdom and in deep Christian faith, like just a very devout person that I look up to. All these people, Kokel too.
Yeah, and I think one of the driving forces is kind of also, having an idea that God has like a plan for you. You know what I mean? Because I feel like I do have a purpose, and not some sort of crazy, like I'm filled with like a, deep, like God has plans for me, I'm going to do great things. But I think maybe my purpose might just to be a good father. Like, I think that's probably, and it's where I feel like probably the most joy in my life is like being with my kids, doing things with them.
Yeah,
And
if you don't
yeah.
provide for your family, that's the first failure, you know.
Yeah. And it's, but I mean, I think just having that and having that feeling and knowing that it is compelling. But also, I mean, like I'd say just assess the way you live and doesn't match what you actually believe. Because I mean, I've trapped people with that moral argument more than I should. You know, I mean, like that they're not living with they're not living with the way they profess to care about things. And I mean, that's a good starting point. It's not going to get you to Jesus, alone. But I mean, like you said, I can't read books and then just find Jesus. Like, or I mean, you can read the Bible, obviously, but I'm not going to read like a bunch of scholarly books that are just like, and therefore he is God. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, just through
When did the prayer turn from praying to God to praying to Jesus, or acknowledging Jesus in those prayers?
I don't know.
I mean, I should say, what caused it? Like, what removed your disbelief? Because the first thing I always ask you as I go through like the Westminster Confession of like, do you believe he rose from the dead? Do you believe he died for your sins? Do you believe you can save yourself without him? And you answer correctly on all those, like, oh, you're a Christian.
Well, I don't want this to like underpin whatever, I wasn't raised Christian at all. Right. I mean, I was raised in I was barely raised. Like my parents were just kind of like, it's like a laissez-faire, do whatever, like the house was empty half the time. But I mean, you and I were talking about this maybe like a month or two ago, but like my grandma, there was a period where, I can't remember. It was just like, I wasn't raised by my grandma, but I remember just being in my grandma's trailer all the time. And she's like an old Italian woman, from Italy. And she was like deeply religious, but she never I don't remember at like her taking me to church. We never went to church. But she was obsessed with Jesus. Like she was really into Jesus. She had like pictures all over the walls. And there was a period where I knew the Lord's Prayer, and I knew I carried around like a little Jesus nightlight. And I think when we were talking about that, because it popped in my mind. Like it's not something I carry around with me.
Because you never told me that. So there's little seeds planted all along. Yeah, little hints and weird. It's like a Christopher Nolan time travel film where you see the clues now.
I remember the feeling of like how close, because I remember feeling like Jesus is my buddy, like he's my friend. Like like that feeling. It was a closeness to Christ, and I remember having when I was like a kid. And when we were talking about that, it's kind of just like, I think maybe that's around when I started incorporating into prayers after that talk, because it's kind of just like, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's like I was describing to you about my wife's friends who were really atheists. And then at some point I'd like look on Facebook, and then they have these posts where it's like, Jesus is bad, leaving me notes every day. He leaves me little love notes that I haven't seen for decades. But today I found, and I'm like, what are they talking about? At the time I'm like, you sound insane. Like, because but it is like a switch like that sometimes. Like it really does just feel like a switch, and then it's kind of just inexplicable. Like I said, I thought when this would happen, or if it did happen, I'd be able to like, I thought I'd be citing like, well, Chesterton said this, and then, but it's not. It's like, it's the opposite of that almost. It just kind of felt like
it's strangely spiritual for how rational of a person you are.
But it makes sense because it's all immaterial. You know what I mean? Like it has to kind of be that way. I don't think if it was just based on some sort of material thing that it would be that I think then I could start to deconstruct it a bit more.
Yeah, by nature, it would not be something that you see with a litmus test and a Geiger counter. You wouldn't measure it. It transcends the particles, so it's going to be out there in a supernatural land. And people go crazy out there too. They believe in cults, they believe in New Age, they believe in whatever they feel, they believe in all these other weird, spooky things that I absolutely reject as a rational person.
Yeah. I think walking that tightrope.
This one I can't. What's that?
It's a tightrope you have to walk, though, in a sense. Like, you don't want to just give in to every feeling that you have or some sort of metaphysics. I think that's my thing, is like, I still want to have questions about Christianity. I don't want to just throw everything to the wind and believe every, religious or supposed religious expert I see. I'm not going to, do anything like that. I still have a lot of reading,
and you were reading the scriptures. You were telling me this is a couple of weeks ago. You were going, I'm reading Matthew.
Yeah. I thought, well, that's the other thing I do find. So that would be the thing about discipline. Like I was saying, like, I don't know if it's just something with me, but like the whole, like Jesus his whole thing is just kind of cool. Like it's better to cut your hand off and stuff like that's kind of speaks to me on a level. Cause it's like, it does, if you're taking this seriously, it would be better to pluck your eye out or cut your hand off. And I don't know. It's that kind of stuff that resonates with me, especially in a culture where everything's just kind of like, well, it's a wishy-washy, and you know, everyone's just a victim of circumstances and this and
Yeah.
that, you know.
Yeah.
What's the chat like? Are they just like
Well, this is a fake chat.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Here's Doug Ernst. This is not Doug Ernst for $5. Doug, I think you can buy LGBT and worship the Lord. I myself am bisexual. That sounds like a war campaign.
Oh no.
You guys, no. Look at here's all caps. That's not Doug Ernst. Of course it's not Doug Ernst. Nice try, you troll. Thanks for the $5. That will go to save unborn babies. Which I'm sure you oppose.
The baby thing's a big, abortion. There's certain things you start to fall in line with. And then I think also just being exposed to other thinkers, like once you kind of fall down a rabbit hole, you do get exposed to other thinkers that are, I don't know, they kind of destigmatize the whole thing that at least I was raised in, like in the 90s with like nothing. Destigmatize the whole like religious freak, dumb, idiocracy type thing.
There are dumb Christians. There are embarrassing Christians, but I'm only saying I can find just as many really dumb atheists and liberals and Jehovah's Witnesses and Muslims. And so I go, if we're going to be fair, in a way, what we're saying is people can be dumb, and Christianity doesn't save people from being dumb.
Well,
they're saved from their sin, not from being dumb.
Yeah, and it is a bit of kind of like what I was saying before, I think last night too, is like if you look for examples in life, they're all anecdotal, but we all know somebody that's like an old religious guy or like old Christian or something like that, who's just like exuding joy regardless of his circumstance in life. We've seen celebrities like that, like Norm Macdonald or even I don't know if Dennis Miller's Christian, but he seems to be like a real happy guy. But like those types.
He seems right there. Like I don't know, I haven't heard for sure not, but I think he does. I think he identifies as Christian.
Yeah, but then you look at the opposite, and it's just kind of like the Clavin was another one I was thinking of. But like you look at the opposite of that, like people like Jack Nicholson or any celebrity or anybody who's living for themselves, they inevitably just kind of end up like these like warped. Like Madonna, like she looks like an Urukai or something now. It's like, you mock Christ and you like, do all this stuff. And that's just kind of like, it's not like he's punishing you, but it's almost like his absence is what's causing you to just become.
They wear the grimness on their whole body.
Yeah. Like sin writes itself on you. Yeah. And I think it's just kind of, you're like, well, that's no way to live. You know what I mean? I'd rather be the happy old guy that maybe doesn't have a lot going on or he's kind of sick than some sort of warped fame, like rich person.
I have the joy of my salvation is my strength. So the joy of Christ is my strength. And there's days where I can physically feel physical depression on me. Like I'm depressed.
Yeah.
But my heart still has joy. It's like a weird thing where you just realize like, oh, chemical depression is one thing. And the joy of God transcends it. It doesn't, suddenly change all the chemicals in your body to just have permanent elation and pleasure. It's something else.
It's like watching a sad scene in a good movie. You know what I mean? Like it's, even though it's a sad scene, it's still a good movie. And that's kind of how, because I'll still get down, not like depressed down, but you still have it. You're human. So you have like moods and things like that. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it does feel, and you kind of do feel it everywhere. I mean, I think that's the other thing too, is like I felt, it feels silly saying, but I mean, you do feel it. Like, I feel like it's everywhere. I feel like Christ is everywhere. I feel like God's everywhere. And it's kind of like when you start taking a moment to notice that.
And new Christians, there's all these scriptures in the Bible, like God, restore me to the joy of my salvation. It's like a guy mourning for when he was first saved, because you get an elation when your eyes are first opened. There's a freedom and a weight taken off that's like a high. A Christian gets, it's just like transcendence. It's like his eyes are open. They talk about scales falling off your eyes. And so I get the kind of That's why I call it born again. It's like you've been newly born. There's
Yeah,
a new Nurkish in town.
it feels like I mean, I don't even know if there's a word for it, but I remember, when you're so used to the way something looks, and then all of a sudden you kind of see with new eyes, or you start to notice something completely different about it, and that's like the first time you've ever seen it. Like, I mean, it could be your phone or just something in your house that you take for granted or something like that. That's kind of how I feel about the world now. It's like, it's almost like it's just completely, different. So I don't know. It's
Right. So
yeah.
we can jump into, look, I got a super sticker. I don't even know what this is. It's 99
it's
cents.
it's like a I don't know. It's, instead of saying stuff, people just put little stickers.
Yeah. Well,
get Amy to come on. Come on, Doug.
I tried.
Jeez,
I
thought
sent
you
her a
could pull
message.
Strings.
She just doesn't live on Twitter like a slave, like me.
God. Amy, come on.
Here's an old guy. Look at this guy, Bud G. I'm an old guy, and have found Jesus to be an excellent source of joy in spite of circumstances, and to find that Doug and Mike of MTSK3, blah blah, are also brothers in Christ is no mere coincidence. Mike is a regular guy.
He compared me to because the last time I listened to his like trees walking.
Yeah.
And this is a gripe I have to take up with him if I ever.
Yeah, call him out right now.
Yeah. Oh, he's not here. I'm just saying.
That's why it's better. You can.
Yeah. People are gonna do it for me. His thing he does with his I think pastor or whatever.
Berkey.
Yeah. He was there. I didn't even think I made any impression on Mike, so I was never like, we're friends. I assumed it was just a favor for you. I don't think
No,
but I was listening
you're
to
friends. Come on.
No, I'm just saying I don't think I made an impression on him.
Okay.
Like Doug or Mike and I aren't friends. I understand that, but like, he was talking about Bo Burnham, and Bo Burnham had, is this comedian who had some sort of like, to me, it seemed like he's crying out for God, but he does all these kind of like songs that are like comedic, and I guess they're kind of atheist. But Mike compared me to him, and he's like, "Oh, I knew this guy who said like baby murder or whatever." There I go again. Whatever we were talking about, you gave me some example that I couldn't refute, based on the morality at the time, and he compared me to that guy, and I'm like, like now I just want to kind of rub it in his face. You got me
wrong, man.
Yeah, yes.
Maybe he remembered it because it was frustrating when we first started with you, where it was very hard to nail you down.
But as a Christian, I don't think you're basically. Even your generations are very different than mine. You're like basically walking around with men without chest. And then when they say the logic of the culture they grew up in, you like throw your arms up in the air. Not you, but like a lot of Christians like throw their arms up in the air like, well, I guess you're lost then. And it's like, I don't know if somebody's genuinely asking you, I don't think that should be your, response. If somebody's mocking you, sure. Go for it. But if somebody's like genuinely trying to find something.
Yeah. And I never thought that you were mocking. I always thought that you were just very, ignorant, I would say, of things, but in the best way of that term. You know what I mean? Like, like someone crawling around blind, and trying to find things.
So I will say that if you want to, if this is, I don't know what the point of this video is, but if it's I guess what I was trying to help atheists is the point they're searching. I would also give a word of advice to Christians that are trying to help atheists is they're very defensive. And I understand that because they're attacked nonstop, but sometimes not everything's an attack. You know what I mean? So if somebody asks a question or says something stupid or silly about Christianity, it's not necessarily an attack. It's just mostly born of like ignorance. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't take every single thing. I have a
pretty hair trigger on that stuff only because I know so many atheists that I feel like a lot of those questions are disingenuous. So
yeah,
I can usually tell when a guy is asking something in good faith.
Yeah, but I've even noticed it with people like, Greg Koukl. It was like, he's a smart guy and he obviously has like great intentions, but even like on some of the, or at least to me, when somebody's asking a question, I'm like, I don't know if that was in bad, like bad faith or anything when they ask that question. And then it seems like he's more frustrated than he should be, or he's a little more dismissive than he should be. And I've seen it with a lot of Christians, and I understand the idea behind it, because I probably will get really sick of, but I just think it might turn away some people who are kind of searching.
Yeah.
Is all.
Yeah. Well, let God sort them out.
Okay. Well, I don't know. That's the idea.
Shoot them all. Let God sort them out.
I'm not saying be a doormat. You know, I'm just saying, like, you know, you have to suffer the stupidity a little bit. Like
Yeah.
if a child was asking those questions, you wouldn't
Yeah.
scoff.
And I do have genuine anguish for anyone who is not a Christian, because I just go, you're walking around carrying the guilt of your sin, and you're trying to, you were never designed to carry that, you know. There's relief and you're freely turning it down. So I have anguish and sadness for the unsaved. Incredible frustration. I have many atheists in my life, non-believers in my life, that just, I'm begging them, like, I don't know how to open your eyes, and you're miserable, and you won't get this life preserver because you just refuse to choose to believe.
Well, that, I mean, like, I have a close friend like that, and I think I talked to you about it, where it's like their nihilism, there's almost a point where you have to kind of cut them off, especially if you're prone to that, like, you know, thought pattern.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you know, I mean, I don't know how many times I've been like, you're the source of your problems, and not in some sort of like, you know, you're an idiot way, but it's like all the root things that you're complaining about, or that you seem to think like, oh great, the world's out to get me. It's like, you're the source of that. You're the one that's impeding your, you know, you're lonely because you push everyone away. You're miserable because you turn everything into some sort of like, you know, victim thing, or it's a struggle.
Well, it's very much me in an unsaved state, and it's still in my nature. You know, I'm saved, but it's still in my nature to be my own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Like, if everything goes down, I don't go like, oh, it's all that guy's fault. Because I know that is a lie, and it's slavery. It's like giving someone else total credit. So instead I just go, it's all your fault. Like, I don't even beat myself up for it. It's just a statement of fact, is all my wounds are self-inflicted. Nearly all of them.
That's another thing too. The slavery, sin of slavery, is like a big thing too. Like the idea of that kind of like the, you know, what we view as freedom is really just like a gilded cage sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people are just like, I want to be free to do this and that. And then, well, I'm free to, and then you look at somebody like those Sam Smith videos, you know, you look at that and you're like, you seem like some sort of warp tainted monster, you know, like something from a movie or a sci-fi book where they get like tainted by this chaos. And
that guy's going to do himself in any day.
Yeah. And then like, even,
I don't,
you know,
like, oh, I want to be, and kids are going like, I want to be that. Or the guy who's the guy that dresses up like the girl? The skinny guy.
the new guy, I forget his name. I know
who
who you're talking about. Well, whatever, the guy who got the plastic surgery. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just look at that guy and I have anguish for him. I just feel so bad. I go, that he's smiling and he looks like the least happy person in his own skin as I've ever seen.
Yeah, they seem like something from Hellraiser or something. I mean, like they're just like, look what I did in my body. It's like, okay, all right.
Yeah. So my message to all of you is, I know there's lots of non-Christians here. And so my message to everyone is always, is repent. That is not something I made up. It's something I got from the Bible. It's something I'm commanded to tell you. And it's because it is an ultimate solution. That is, I could give you advice, oh, vote Republican, or oh, go to church, or oh, be a better person. And I don't believe those ultimately are the kinds of huge, big, swing for the fences changes that you need. What you need is to repent for your sin before God and ask Jesus to forgive them, and he pays for them. That's my message to everyone always. And I say that as someone who myself is saved every day by Jesus. So it's not something that I'm not smarter or greater or anything. In fact, if anything, I'm weaker. And so I've kind of gotten to that end game of, oh, I see where all this is going. You know, it's going with me in a heap on drugs, face down in a ditch somewhere, jumping off a building is where it's going. So I'm happily a long time Christian. And Nurkish, you become my brother. It's family. You're family now.
Well, it seems like you have a big family, Doug.
So I'm 6'8". How could I not?
So the only other thing I would say is, now I guess it's kind of against the nature of Christianity a bit, but like,
you're allowed to give wrong answers, Nurkish.
Well, just the language. If your idea is to kind of like start speaking to atheists, is like the language not needs to change in a sense, but like you have to, it's almost like you have to talk to a child. So like the idea of like repent, I'm on board with that, but it's almost like you have to phrase it, begin with like, do you think that you're perfect? You know, like, are you fallible? Do you do things in your life that you think aren't Correct.
Do you
Then
think an
like
atheist doesn't know what repent means? If I go up to an atheist, like the most ignorant atheist, and I go to him and I go, you have to repent.
I think the connotation is immediately like Jesus stuff. So I don't think they
That's what I'm
review.
saying. I'm being honest. I'm saying, yeah, it's all those bad things that you think that you're not supposed to think about and you're not allowed to think about. I mean exactly that. And I'm taking, they're a little, wait, you don't mean hell. That was my favorite Nickelodeon conversation with a fellow producer. He goes, I like you. You're the kind of Christian that doesn't go around judging people thinking that like Jesus is the only way. I go, no, I do think Jesus is the only way. He goes, yeah, but you're not one of those guys that think like anyone who doesn't accept Jesus is going to hell. I go, no, I do think everyone doesn't accept Jesus goes to hell. And his face just turned ice cold.
I'm just saying it's like baby steps. I'm not saying don't get there or don't not believe that or say if you're asked that's what you believe. I'm just saying like it has to kind of be baby steps with some of them because they're so lost and wandering. Probably like, not more so than any time in history.
I believe in
it's pretty bad.
Repent just means to turn.
But I know, but leading with that, I think that culture has so many, you know what I mean? There's just certain like buzzwords that you hear, and then you're kind of like, I think atheists shut off if they hear something like repent. They're like, man, it's because it sounds very judgy.
They were open-minded before I said that?
No, well, for one, I don't know if you're gonna.
How about what if I said repent, asshole?
I'm starting to think that there is. I mean, what is that? Calvinism?
Because that would be more accurate. Calvinism, yeah.
I don't know if that.
There's a Calvinist in the chat, by the way.
I think it might be predetermined who's going to be saved.
Yeah,
what is that? Calvinism?
That is Calvin.
Then I might be on board with that because I
resisted that for almost all of my Christian walk, and the older I get, the more Calvinist I become.
Well, so,
just so you guys know, John Calvin wrote the Institutes. He wrote about that you're predestined to be saved or not, and that you really tulip is you don't have irresistible grace. Like you can't turn it down if God offers it to you. It's like you have like in Calvin and Hobbes. Hobbes was this philosopher that believed in ultimate free will, and Calvin had a low view of free will, is how I'll put it. So you think you were, because if I was going to ask you, make it make sense to me, Nurkish, like explain all the nuts and bolts. It feels like you were hunted and you came in like kicking and screaming and you could do no other.
It almost seems inevitable. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think if Jesus paid a price for humanity, there has to be a sum total at the bottom that he's paying for, right? There has to be something that's like on the other side of the scale. So I almost feel like it's
he didn't hang on the cross and go, I hope someone accepts this.
Yeah, like he wasn't going like, here's a blank check. I feel like it's almost going like, here's the exact amount. Yeah. And it's going to be, at the end, the ledger is going to balance out.
Look at this. Here's Mike Miller in the chat. Calvinism makes God a monster.
Oh, look at the monkey avatar.
With the monkey avatar. We're ripping on Mike Miller. He's an old Christian friend of mine. But no, I'm extremely, I just don't want to get into Calvinism now. We'll do that on another night. Okay.
Is it going to be like the next season of Saving Nerkish will have to do with Calvinism?
Season 2, we'll start on the Reformation and we'll bring the Eastern Orthodoxy and we'll get the great schism going with the Catholics too. I love theology, and this is like, I know this channel is like devoted to politics, which is way downstream from religion. So a lot of people are going to be surprised to see this kind of faith talk on here. I'm also an artist and a video game guy, and there's people that go like, just will you shut up about politics and religion and just draw, you monkey, you slave, just do what I want, you performer clown, draw for me. So I'm here for all three, but number one, I'm a Christian. And so it's very important to me, and it's good to have these talks. That's all.
Yeah, look, already people are upset about I didn't know the Calvinism thing would be such a big deal.
It's a big deal.
I feel like it's
the religious divisions are huge. Look,
now that I'm in, now I'm seeing all the schisms.
Oh yeah, it's ugly over here, Nurkish. You'll go, how are any of these people saved? My favorite argument is I follow like these two groups of Calvinists where one believes in infant baptism and one does not. And so they're just like, having a fight. I laugh at all of them. So, because I'm a mutt, I believe in a whole lot of things. I'm a Reformed Presbyterian as my church, and they're all hardcore Calvinists, and I'm a latecomer to that. And it really does come from both experience and reading the scripture that leans me more and more in that direction. That's all.
I just feel like if reality and time, and this is obviously just kind of like my very fledgling thoughts on it, but I just feel like if God's viewing everything in the way that all time is not linear to him, it would already be known, right? So it's like, it's, I mean, to us, it'd be like, well, then it's preordained, but it's not really preordained. It's just kind of known.
Right. So, that's, Einstein's theory of relativity is that time has a physical property to it. And they've proven it, by taking a watch to the moon and it had a different time than when it came back, that it's fungible. So God is not a physical being, so he's not bound to physical time. Time serves him. He doesn't serve time.
But the moon landing was fake, Doug. Come on.
Yeah. Well, and Hollow Earth.
I'm just going to completely undermine everything.
Look at this guy, Wallace Williams. Doug in Exile, you draw?
Not well. I mean, if you're like weird,
I'm probably one of the best artists.
Every artist I know is, well, no, that's not true. I was going to say there's a lot of them that are like really cocky, but that's not true. Not all of them.
It's not cocky if you're telling the truth.
I will say I was surprised that you could draw as well as you could. If that's traditionally, you know what I mean? Traditionally well, because it's almost like when you see Picasso paint something really realistic or good, you're like, oh, we could actually do that. He just chose to lean in a different direction.
I make my living as a cartoonist, but I'm actually okay at classic portrait oils and stuff and sculpture. Not marble, but like clay and stuff. I can do a pretty realistic rendering of someone. You guys, if you want to check out my art channel, it's just, if you look up Doug TeNapel on YouTube, you'll see my art stuff. I think there's a link on this channel somewhere too of my art stuff. I can kick it pretty hard. I'm not great. My thing is I love art. I love doing it. So to me, the whole discipline thing of making it a job is never that appealing to me. That's what it takes to get really great at art, is you have to be just like devoted to the skill. And I just love like going, woo, paint, and great work doesn't come from that. Great cartooning does, but whatever. Here's a $5 super chat from Kimberly. I love Jesus. How kind. Look at you.
There you go. You remember the old days when you used to read every single super chat? Are you still doing that?
Yeah, if I got more.
Okay. I remember just like even like 25 cents. You're like, okay, well, Bob says, and it completely derail the.
Oh, I hated that.
Yeah.
Guys, they think they can get by with like totally derailing your whole program for 99 cents.
Not that I'm saying these people, are doing that. I'm just saying in the old days, I do remember. Well, look, there's a lot of, Christians here. That's the other thing. I got to find a good church. And I think I found one, but I got to go and I can't just keep like chewing your ear about Christ and stuff.
Yeah, you can't. Don't forsake the meeting of the brothers is what the Bible says. So there's something about meeting with other believers that is designed to put you in a family and plug you into a community where you actually can start doing, like our church does, great community projects. And just, in fact, I thanked God today in my prayers, as I thanked for your salvation. I thanked him that I belong to this church where I go there, and it's just like they feed me. These people, they make me want to sit up straight and be a better person. And the music is like just a beautiful feast. They have like a 6-piece orchestra thing, and the preaching is great. I've just never been to a church like that where I just go, this is what church is supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's great. And I never want to go. Like when I'm on my way, I'm like, getting dressed and yelling at the kids, get in the car. And then I go in that church and it's just like, oh, so if you guys haven't found a church, plug yourself in.
But ideally, you want to be like the worst person in the room, like you want to surround yourself with like good people. You don't want to be.
I am convinced I'm the worst person in my church. How's that?
Well, there you go. Probably the youngest too, right?
No, our church, like, this is Tennessee, and they're like, conservative reformers. So like everyone reproduces. I have 4 kids. It was a big deal when we were in LA. You come out here, 4 kids, 5 kids. One guy has 9 kids. It's like there's kids everywhere. So it's not like when you go to normal woke churches and everyone hates children. That's the first thing that should tell you something about non-Christians, is like just the hatred of people.
Yeah,
especially little children.
Well, I think that's another reason why they want so much like control. Like you want top-down control because you just hate people and you think that they're all like morons and they're completely incapable of anything.
And we're overcrowded. And they're like,
Yeah.
half of the people shouldn't be here. I only know that they're over in that country and not me.
Yeah. I saw Chelsea Handler say something where it was like there's another one of those coping things where it's like an old barren woman basically trying to justify why she didn't have kids. So it's like, there's too many. We don't need any more screaming children. And it's like, yeah, we just need more screaming old women. Because that's pretty much it's like a Babylon Bee article. It's like, we don't need more screaming children, says shrieking old hag.
Yeah, there's only that narrow place where they believe in like killing the unborn and they believe in like euthanasia for old people. It's like there's only this little tiny bracket of really shallow, beautiful Hollywood people where they believe you should even be alive.
Well, it's not even euthanasia for old people. It's just euthanasia for anybody who might just be having like a bad day too. Just like anybody really, because you don't want to impede on that. If somebody just wants to go into the death pod, just go. That's fine.
All right. So just to, you want to go into anything else? Are you done or do you want to talk politics at all or do you care?
If you want, I don't care. I got the night off now. So
I know I ruined your other night. That you have to go do kid bathing. Your kids. I just want to clarify that. You're a conservative, Republican-ish, kind of a I don't know what to call it. What do you call
almost
that?
Said alt-right or something.
Yeah, kind of almost alt-right. Like we're both fans of Gavin McInnes, but we also kind of draw a line on him.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say conservative before Republican. I want to put like Republican because the party's a little squishy and honestly sometimes it's like controlled opposition.
All true Republicans aren't very Republican anymore. They're going like, I was a hardcore Republican and now I can't even stand the party. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I'm like, Nick Fuentes, all right, like that far or anything. Like, but there is like elements of.
You're like Nick Fuentes light.
No. I just think there's elements of like the backbone of not backing down or cowering when somebody's like accusing you of stuff that I do kind of appreciate. Libertarians share that, although I wouldn't consider myself a libertarian because, I think they're crazy.
They're pro fentanyl.
Yeah, you also have to have some sort of understanding of humanity and like how people behave and incentives and you have to have some sort of like moral grounding that can't be shaken. What I mean?
So we talked about this the other night. Like libertarians, they believe in the minimal ethic or the minimal moral ethic, which is like just do no harm. Just do no harm to someone else, and that's all that culture and society and civilization and government should be.
Yeah.
Just do no harm. And that's not enough for me.
No, I don't think it's enough I think you have to be honest about like I think libertarians sometimes aren't as honest about their intentions or maybe more conservatives and Republicans aren't as honest about their intentions as they want to be. So they'll do stuff where it's like, yeah, free speech. But then when they want to go like drag queen story hour is bad, they won't just lean in and go drag queen story hour is bad. They'll be like, well, no, then it's maybe good because, we can't be as bad as the left if we censor it, so it's like you just got to double down, like follow your logic. If you think it's bad, then you do think it's bad. And I don't think it's necessarily bad to use the levers of power for what you believe, your core convictions of what you believe is good. Yeah. That's the whole point of like having a belief system. You have to have unshakable beliefs. Some of them have to be unshakable. Yeah.
And the founders said if society wasn't a moral one first, that the Constitution would never work. Flat out, they made it assuming it was at least a Judeo-Christian culture, if not just Christian, period.
Yeah, a lot of it feels like that. Like I said the other day, that meme where it's like everybody's all the conservatives are being lined up to, be executed or shot or something. And then one guy's going like, well, at least we didn't, censor speech or whatever, because then we'd be just as bad as them. And it's like, that's kind of, you have to have an understanding of how politics works and the inner workings of the machine a bit. And then you have to face some hard truths where like, I used to be a big free speech absolutist, but I'm going like, no. And it's libertarians sometimes strike me as like they kind of miss the days of the 90s a bit where you could say kind of like edgy stuff and there's a lot of edgy humor and this and that, but then there was also like sexual liberation and so it's kind of like a weird middle ground, and it seems like they kind of miss that. But I'm like,
in the 90s you had this is the Howard Stern period, right?
Yeah.
you had the luxury of being able to fall back on a functioning civilization that had operational manners and families. So yeah, you can cuss and be badass and all that, but you're still in a culture that works. If the culture becomes that anarchist, almost chaotic, with no manners and no forgiveness and no love for the fellow man or whatever, which is kind of what we're turning into. If you look at Twitter and you look at just us despising each other, civilization is falling apart.
Yeah. So like going back to the alt-right thing, it's like there are elements of everybody that I think's okay. I do like the spine of those types of guys where they don't back down. But, I also don't think this kind of crazy wackadoo stuff is good. And then sometimes there's like the neocons can every now and then have a decent thing where it's like, yeah, sometimes it is incremental approach. Sometimes, you don't want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
But I feel like more and more with like general conservatives and Republicans, it's just kind of like, I don't want to be liberal. Like I had this argument with my brother-in-law who's liberal, and he's always doing this stuff where he's like telling me what he wants conservatives to be. They all need to be like these rhinos, or they all need my thing with them is they pick a cultural issue and they won't back down. And then I told him, I was like, then what are they conserving if they just back down? Yeah. For one, they do back down all the time, but I was like,
yeah, they only back down, and liberals don't back down on all the stuff that they believe that they're pushing on you, like bake the cake.
Yeah.
Bake the cake.
And I just went like, they're conservatives. They're supposed to conserve something. That's their point. They're supposed to kind of be reactionary in a sense. So
we're going to politically manipulate Twitter with the FBI.
Yeah, and he just, he had another, he like thought about it for a second because he realized, I was right. So it's like, I don't know. But the modern like Republicans feel a bit like just liberals from like 20 years ago, and I'm not really keen on that. You know what I mean? Like if it's just like in the future, we'll be like in 20 years from now, Republicans will just be liberals from today. I'm not signing up.
Have you heard of the Overton window?
Yeah.
Okay, can you explain it?
No, it's basically saying like that's the speech thing, right? Like the more we censor speech, the smaller the acceptable things or concepts that we can talk about are there.
Well, it's
right?
also that there's a master window of morality that we're all fitting within, so that the Republicans, when you said Republicans are like liberals 20 years ago, it's like the Overton window has gone so far left.
Oh yeah,
what used to be crazy hippie lefty. Now you've got the Republican Party saying, hey, the pro-lifers are what lost the election, so let's get off these social issues. Let's just stick to the border.
Well, there also are certain things that I feel like we should just not are non-starters. I think the left has some things right. So like in their mind, debating a Nazi or whatever should just be like an untenable thing. You shouldn't even do that. And I do think that's like kind of a sound argument in a sense. Like I don't think any conservative should be having some sort of argument with somebody about trans kids. Like that's a non-starter. That's not a thing. We're not discussing it. We're not discussing gender like affirming surgery for children. Like it's a morally wrong thing to do. So there's no argument to be had here, and me even doing so is kind of
it's just you're wrong and now I'm going to make fun of you.
Yeah, but it's like we're not going to have some debate on the merits of this, because even me using your terminology is giving it legitimacy. So I'm not working in your framework of nonsense where there could be trans kids at 2 who need puberty blockers or something like that. I'm not entertaining that.
Do you want to talk about our project at all?
If you want.
Yeah.
I like how it's like, what was it, hour and a half or something of very serious stuff. And it's like, oh, and by the way,
they'll never get through the first hour. So
for those of you who disagreed with,
they'll be like, screw this Christian lunatic. Okay, tell them what we're doing.
I'm the one telling them.
Yeah, you can tell them. Just don't tell them the title, because I'm not sure on that.
I like the title, or I like the names. So it's what, like a cartoon, a short form cartoon, with the two of us. That's very like dialogue based, like Bert and Ernie, Odd Couple. That we'll be putting on, I guess a channel you'll be releasing. The art style is very like 90s ish, like a throwback to Nickelodeon, I guess.
No, the 90s were me.
Yeah.
So it's me drawing me.
There's a bit.
And because I defined the 90s.
Okay. Well, I don't know if that's anything to take credit for.
Get your story straight.
And it's just all comedy. It's all comedy based on dialogue. And I feel like it's comedy that's kind of free of, I mean, obviously there's like some hints of things, but it's not really like us pushing anything. It's just being stupid for being stupid, and it's being stupid without being vulgar too, which I think is like a talent in itself.
Yeah.
So
It's a lot funner.
yeah.
What we do is fun. And some people might even find it vulgar. So it's not,
No, yeah, but I mean, like, I think it's like I showed my kids, 2 of the episodes, and they laughed and stuff, and so, I think it's good. I think there's something there. We also got like a very, very talented animator on it, so probably, way outside of what we
way beyond what we need.
Yeah,
So,
could I? No, I don't know. I guess not. But he's done stuff you might have seen, right? Like that. He did some like a Biden cartoon and stuff like that. That's like pretty, silly, and like he's good at animating. I mean, you guys have probably seen 1 or 2 of his memes or stuff like that he's put out.
So it's just 3 of us. We've got 3 1 minutes in the can, and we're recording we've got a bunch of episodes recorded that we're still working on, and we're going to try to do one every once in a while, and I'll tell this channel about it. We'll tell everyone on Twitter about it, and when it comes out, and we need subs and clicks. But,
yeah, I think it's important as like a father to have, like, my daughter's getting the age where she's not watching Cocomelon or anything anymore, and so finding shows and content.
You don't want her head to cave in.
Yeah, but so she wants stuff, and it's like to watch, and that we could all watch together, and that's engaging and kind of funny. So like I think there does need to be more content in that wheelhouse that isn't like a Steven Universe or something. It's basically just like
woke washing everybody.
Yeah, and that's another sad thing is like to see like all the truly talented people whose like minds kind of just go with like politics, and it like so to create something that's not some sort of agenda driven nonsense, I think is pretty good.
Yeah. I do agenda. I mean, I do if I thought it was funny, it would never be, it just wouldn't be very funny if it was pure advocacy, That would
I mean,
really ice cold,
Yeah. You do it in a way that's like, your mind's not corrupted by some sort of like virus or something. I mean, it's like when Trump was president, you meet those people that somehow inject it into like every single conversation they had. So it becomes like that, and so it's, I mean, I could see how I guess somebody would just go crazy, but it's good to not let it corrupt the art. If it flows naturally, that's that's good.
Here's an exercise question or a comment. Look at this guy, Michael Fellner. Doug used to embarrass us into exercising more often. It worked while pointing. We also need to be exercising our rights. Wash, rinse, repeat. Now, Nurkish, you're a big goon weightlifter.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them about working out.
I mean, I'm not that big. I'm just, it's pretty simple. I mean, like I would say,
what do you bench press?
Oh boy, I don't even know. Like it's not that much. I got a Swiss bar, so that changed now.
You got a real one.
No, well, I got a Swiss bar because my elbows were hurting. So I mean, I don't know. Was it 45, 99? It's like over 200 something. It's nothing crazy. Like it's, but I would just say do compound lifts, do the big 4, so like deadlift, shoulder press, like military press, squats, bench press.
Yep.
Don't obsess over weight, but lift heavy. So don't try to be breaking PRs all the time. Like that's the thing I kind of threw out the window is like obsessing over weight, but like doing, I forget the word for it. Incremental progression. You need to do like incremental overload over time.
You need to push yourself.
Yeah.
I get so weak and floppy that like when I'm doing bench, I have a 45 patty on each set. I can only do 5 of those. Then I'll go down to a 35 to finish the set of 10. And then I'll go back and try and do just maybe 2 with the 45s, which is nothing. What is that? 90 pounds.
I mean, I don't know how much. So that's the thing. I feel like sometimes people obsess over like programs. I don't know how much truth there is in that, but I've always stuck to like in the 4 to 6 range for like big lifts. Yeah. And I feel like that's at least trying to keep you more focused on like a good
on
weight.
Pushing the weights.
Yeah. So it's not so much like hypertrophy does this and then, but I do think compound lifts, relatively heavy. You don't need any exercise. You don't need a workout that's like over an hour or anything like that.
Well, and you're tall, I'm tall. And so my joints are skinny. My joints are not, they're loose. So it's very hard for me to do the structure, on things like a bench press or even like, if I did an overhead lift, I have to really bring the weight down. So it's hard for me to stack weight.
Yeah, don't sacrifice form too. That'd be another thing. I've made that mistake. So then everything else is just kind of accessory work and stuff like that. So like do your big four, and then you could work in some like.
Oh, there's a plank guy right there. Look at that. I like my plank people. Plank, baby. I hit the floor first thing in the morning, straight out of bed, gets all the muscles active.
Mm-hmm.
So when I work out 3 times a week, well, 2 of them, I do 4 1-minute planks with my workout buddy. We do 4 in a row.
I've having the gym in the garage. I've become so kind of like not lazy, but like it's just such a convenience.
I'm not driving to a gym. I'm going to do my workout now.
Yeah. One of the best things to come out of COVID was because my wife was so like, when it first hit, she was like, "Oh, I don't know," and I'm like, "Okay, let me get a home gym." And like now
I've
we're
got
not
a home gym right there, and all the weights look brand new.
You could have made money off of those. You could have sold them during COVID because it was hard. It was hard to find weights during that time.
To use them. I have to go to the gym and be with my buddy, or I can't do it.
Oh,
I skipped yesterday to write our scripts. I skipped yesterday.
The scripts are good, Doug's. I will say also with that, I'm surprised. You'll probably take it as an insult, but I'm surprised that they're funny. Because I don't know, I mean, like when you're talking to somebody, you're not always trying to make them laugh. So it's like, I didn't know you could actually write things that were funny.
I fart. It's easy.
Well, I mean, obviously looking back, I'm like, it makes sense. You have the experience there, but it's not, I didn't really think
I write.
Yeah.
That's my thing is I write. I'm not saying it'll last. I'm not saying this show will last. The good writing won't last for long, but usually if I sit down and just go, I can pull something out.
Yeah.
But how about this? It's not that I'm funny. It's that everyone else is so non-funny. It makes me look competent.
I've heard that. I won't say the name of the podcast because it's kind of raunchy, but there's a podcast with like pretty funny guys on it. And they basically admit that they're like, if society wasn't so stupid and, like the Simpsons wasn't just some sort of like a talking, like puppet for like this Democrats, we wouldn't have a show. You know what I mean? Like, cause we just make dirty jokes all the time, but they're like, if the culture is what it had been like 20 years ago, we wouldn't have a show. It would just, no one would care. We wouldn't be, successful at all.
So our show's going to be good. I'm happy with it. What I've seen, is working.
The talent's there. I'm probably the weak link, Oh, yeah.
Because it's going to be good. The team is solid.
Yeah.
And this is another cool thing about the philosophy of the show is that you don't need a studio. It's like you just need a little bit of talent, and then YouTube is like the biggest broadcast network in the world, and it's free. Like that is, you don't understand. Like when I was growing up, Nurkish, like I'd be in high school going, I just want to animate for Mr. Walt Disney. I mean, he's dead, but I want to animate for Walt Disney's Frozen Head. And there's no outlet. You just go like, I have to go. There's these giant gates, at like Universal Studios. You have to try and trick how do you ever get a guard to let you into a gate? Like there was no way in.
Yeah.
And now everyone has this giant television network that's free. I'm going, why aren't artists making stuff? And this is part of why we're on video anyways. We're doing these shows. It's just like, why? Not that I would spend this much time doing it unless I was getting paid through advertisements, but this is like every performer's dream. If you're a stand-up comic, why aren't you doing comedy? Or if you're an actor, why aren't you acting on your own show?
I've seen people do that too, where they're almost like the new thing is like, I've seen comedians cut out a niche and then go like, I'm comfortable here. Like what, why would I go try to be the next Dave Chappelle when I could just get canceled for saying some sort of raunchy joke when I could just do these kind of straight to YouTube or locals or Patreon or whatever, comedy specials or things and like preach to my audience and they could find it funny because that's what they signed up for. Why do I need to take this route of like the HBO George Carlin special every year? Like what's in there for me?
Yeah.
So
I don't,
was the stream everything you wanted it to be, Doug? You had high hopes for it.
Well, I just want to, if you told the truth, then yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying I don't know if everybody's as excited about your friend becoming Christian as you.
No, but the audience has moved on. I just wanted to document it. Because we spent so much time on the Saving Nerkish show that I think this is a great ending to an epic 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing too. I was thinking too with like the to tie it all together is just like, you know, even if you don't think you are, you're kind of planting seeds with, you know, like small interactions. So even if you saying repent or this or whatever you're saying to somebody that's, you know, an atheist, and you might not be the one to convert them, you know, who knows, maybe that just planted a seed. 10 years somebody else will sow, you know. So
it's important they hear your story. And in a way, what I like about your story is all of these stories, none of them make sense. You know, they're all so unique that it starts to give a bigger testimony of what's happening, that there's a God at work who's working with people and bringing them to him. Or as I have, let me find this. Now I'm in trouble. Let's get this this is my Bible I got in my junior year. Did we get you a Bible yet, Nurkish? Do I have to get you a Bible?
Yeah, sure. Buy me one. Go.
Dude, I'll buy you one. I will. It'll be good.
It's gonna be a nice one. And then where you like sign it. You're gonna sign it.
Yeah. I'll sign Deuteronomy. Let's find my favorite verse here. What does it really need to do?
They the other thing I'll say real quick while you're looking that up is, I think another compelling thing, like the most compelling thing Christians can do is you know, like live your beliefs. Kind of, I guess that's kind of what I was saying earlier about like the aging person who might be sick but Christian. It's like when you see a Christian and they're exuding it, they don't even really have to kind of witness to you. It's almost like their life is the, you know what I mean? Like their personality, their life, their attitude, their actions are what kind of sell it.
Here's my verse for you. It's Deuteronomy 25:11-12. If two men are fighting and the wife of one of them comes to rescue her husband from his assailant and she reaches out and seizes him by his private parts, you shall cut off her hand. Show her no pity. That's my verse for you.
Thank you. I just wanted to let it sit there. You know, we've been doing line reads.
I know you were trying to make my skin crawl, weren't you? No. Let's go to, I'll do John, because you've been reading Matthew, but I'll do John 10. This is the shepherd and his flock. Therefore, Jesus said, again, I tell you the truth, I am the gate for the sheep. All who ever came before me were thieves and robbers. I am the gate, and whoever enters through me will be saved. This is also where he says, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. He says, my sheep know my voice. So that's, to me, the great calling is that if you're his sheep, you'll know his voice, and he's calling you. So. And
also, you know, like a shepherd protects his sheep. I think that's another thing I notice, like atheists are more like, oh, you sheep, you know, like you're just a sheep. And it's like, oh yeah, but no, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily like that. Yeah. But also the idea that you're going to be a lion against the chaos of the universe is kind of a silly, like when you're going like, I'm not a sheep, I'm a lion. It's like, against what? Like evil and chaos. I don't think like maybe in your daily life you could be
against
a lion.
Against cancer. Really?
Yeah.
Look at you. You're all shriveled up and dying.
Let's check on the lion in 50 years. Yeah. See how he's doing.
Against depression. Go try and fight depression with that. I'm going to conquer this thing.
Yeah, I think that's the stuff where it kind of starts to get. Yeah, you have to have humility. That's the other thing too, is humility is a big thing.
That's all the people that Jesus worked with were humble people. So what they were.
Well, Jesus was too, right? You know, like the idea of
meek and mild.
Yep. Well, I mean, you know, just the whole concept is
of God coming down as a man. That he reduced.
You're lowering your station to like probably the lowest thing, or not the lowest thing, but you know, like
it says he submitted himself. He submitted himself unto the cross and even unto death, and that's why his name will be above every name. It's weird because you get a big name. That's the irony of Christianity: is you kneel to stand. The foolish confound the wise. When you admit you're weak, you're strong. It's this. The idea is that God doesn't want you calling on the strength and power of the universe. That's why he works through King David. David was this little boy who comes out and kills a giant. It's like everything's about the lesser conquering the greater, because he's giving this kind of counter idea to all of this earthly power that we're all trying to pursue, of money and power and online coolness and can I manipulate in this, this Machiavellian way, all these other people around me, show how cool I am, post this picture of me on Twitter so I look happier than I am, with my smiling
Yeah, it's all
family.
performative, like it's that whatever it is meme where like the person's wearing a smug mask and they're just like crying underneath it,
I love that one too.
Yeah. So it's like yeah, no, it's good. I already thanked you for playing a role, but thank you.
I'm just a guy.
Okay, good.
I'm just a barely literate comic book artist.
There we go with your fake humble.
I'm really a megalomaniac.
Yeah, kind of. You just talked about how you're like the greatest artist.
Well, that was me being humble. That was.
Let's see you go against Michelangelo. Dig that guy up. What were you doing when you were 6? Doug?
Yeah. I wasn't carving Michelangelo. I think Michelangelo carved the David when he was a fetus.
He did the Pietà when he was like 18 or something like that.
Yeah.
17.
Yeah.
And then even to have the perspective, so like the David was going to be up on like a huge Colosseum or something, so it had to be carved in a perspective where it still makes sense when you're on the ground. So even just to understand that, you know what I mean? Like that.
No artist can call himself great. If you've been to the Louvre and you walk through these columns there's like probably, I would guess, 40 or maybe 60 marble statues as good as the David by all these different guys that you've never heard of. The most amazing human figures going down white marble, on each side, all the way down. And I just walk out of there and I almost cried. I just go like, I never want to draw again. Like I can't draw. I can't even call myself an artist anymore. That was my response to like the greatest artists, truly. And I'm just this goofy cartoonist, and I really had like a crisis of meaning on that.
Well, it's like, what does the modernity produce in art? What does like God-driven art produce? And it's like, what is modernity? It's just like, I made a cartoon, or look at my video game or something. It's like, who cares? They're more like I would say like art's been replaced with like technical skill or something like that, rather than.
Well, now we have AI. You don't even have an artist.
So I was thinking about that the other day, how funny all these like artists crying about the AI is funny, because it's like, they're like, oh, well, that's put me out of a job and blah, blah, blah. And then if you were to go like, okay, well, so this AI is like putting you out of a job or something, like what's some projects you're working on? It'd just be derivative crap. Like basically they're an analog version of AI. So it'd be like, what are you working on? I'm working on a comic that's kind of like Adventure Time, but they're just doing the same exact thing as the AI, but it's just this weird analog version through their stupid people brain.
It's Adventure Time light. Yeah, I saw the OnlyFans girls were complaining about virtual, and they're going like, my career's over.
Yeah, which is basically they're just upset that it's like piracy in a sense. Yeah, it's like I was gonna sell that. Like don't you sell it for free?
So, zero integrity. There you go.
But next you need to work on Sven. I think Sven's gonna be.
Yeah, we'll get him. Mm-hmm. We need to do like a giant mass witness.
Sven's a hard one.
Yeah, he'll be hard. Sven,
I think I was hard.
We're coming for you.
Woo!
We're coming for you, man.
I had nothing. Sven has like a weird rooted system of his, pagan beliefs. So you got to untie that.
Well, God has saved some of the most awful people that ever walked, and he has not saved some of the best people you've ever met.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I'll put it, that it brings him glory when he takes down a truly bad person, when he saves a truly bad person. So
yeah, he's not chasing the righteous. Like he's not pouring all this effort into
it. He can't do anything with someone that just goes, I've got it all figured out. I don't need you. So if you feel the need, there you go. I think we've made that clear now. What your job is you should crawl in your skin and fall to the ground and say, God, I'm just, I don't add up. When you say that to him, that's when he can work with you. So,
well,
this was good.
Yeah. No, Amy.
If I can get Amy and Mike, maybe we'll do another one. Maybe we'll do a big theology one.
Oh gosh, then they'll ask more questions. I'll be like, Ask them serious questions like, what did Jesus say to you specifically?
Yeah, I can't make fun of your Christianity until you're mature enough. When you're mature enough, I can really tear you apart. That's
Oh, what, like my beliefs on things? I don't
Yeah.
know if I have one outside of just Christ.
Yeah,
You know,
I'll go,
right
oh
now, like,
yeah? What about when the Greek and the Hebrew says this, Nurkish? Way to go. Way to
oh, then
sell
it's
out.
then you're just like a religious version of like comic book guy. That'll be
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. It's like we turn into the comic book owner. In episode 42, page 45. Oh man, arguments over the book of Revelation about when stuff happened, end time stuff, man. I just
Is that what I have to look forward to if I talk to these Stand to Reason folks?
bad. No, the Stand to Reason folks they're Kokel's thing is about being winsome and attractive, so he's actually kind. I'm like terrible.
He seems like a inverted version of that atheist guy. You know what I'm talking about? Like the big-headed skeptic guy. I can't think of his name right now.
Michael Shermer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he and Kokel are friends.
Yeah, well, they act kind of similar. They both have like a kind
Yeah.
of positive, like upspeak tone to them. And
I
stuff.
like Shermer a lot.
Yeah.
I've read his books though, and he's terrible. His theology's terrible. I tried.
Oh no,
man.
yeah.
I tried, but he is winsome. He's very winsome and very kind.
And so, I think he's open to things. So he's not dismissing things out of hand or being like smug and kind of
allegedly. Wait, Amy Hall just texted me. Hold on.
Oh gosh. Well,
hey, do you guys still want me in? I'm available now. Yes. Just to bug you.
Our 4-hour stream. I could have streamed tonight saying offensive things on my live stream, Doug.
I know. You could have just destroyed it, just really dismantled your credibility.
I don't do as much offensive.
There she is.
Oh boy.
Amy. Amy. How are you, love?
Hey guys.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. How long ago was I on your show? It was a long time ago.
6 years, 5 years?
Probably
what was it?
4 years. 4
Yeah.
years. I think she was 12.
Sorry, I'm hearing a major
You gotta
repeat
put
here. Hold on.
headphones.
Okay.
How can someone who runs a media company not know how to do YouTube? Yet?
I just got in here and I saw your note that you were doing this show, and so I was trying to set stuff up really fast.
We're an hour and a half in. You're late.
Well, in fairness, I told him a time because I had to do it after my kids were down, and then he completely didn't listen to me and said, "Where are you?" And I was like, "I just told you the time I can do this at." So then I had my wife put the kids down, and
So I miss?
You missed him confessing everything. He's a Christian. So just some background for the audience. Amy works for Stand to Reason, which is a ministry. We've already given them all the background on you and Kokel and everything. And it's kind of how I met Mike Nelson, and Mike Nelson and I, how we met Nurkish, and you've been talking to Nurkish and all that. So but I also said that you were a good person and a good theologian.
Aw.
So there.
Thanks, Doug.
So you've been helping Nurkish out behind the scenes. Are you going to come to the big Philly event? We can talk about that, right? Are you going to come?
Yes. Yeah, I'll definitely be there. I'm hoping Nurkish, you're still coming, right?
yeah.
If you're already a Christian, you don't have to have any questions answered anymore.
Oh yeah, I'll just go.
The problem is he can't be doxxed.
So now I have to not go, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just put a stormtrooper helmet on him and everything's fine.
Yeah, so we have a youth conference in Philly, and I'm trying to remember the exact dates. Let me see if I can pull those up. But anyway, you can go to realityapologetics.com and all the information's there if people are interested. It's for students, but adults come too.
Yeah, I've been to these student events. I think they're fantastic. I went to the Remind ones, was it? Renew?
It used to be called Rethink. Yeah, now it's called Reality.
Yeah, so that was back when it was in Orange County, and I went to the events for kids, and I loved them. J. Warner Wallace and Kunkel, Schliemann were there. Mm-hmm. It was good.
It's going to be great.
I look forward to this time. Who's coming?
So it'll be Greg will be there. Jim will be there. Tim Barnett, like some of your viewers might know Red Pen Logic, so he'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
who else might you know who's
No,
going?
no one
Well, obviously
knows
Alan
these people
Schleman.
because they're all biblically illiterate in my audience, as I insult everyone who's watching right now. Is there an admission fee or anything that they have to know? Do they have to buy tickets in advance? What are the dates?
They do have to buy tickets. Let me pull the dates up here. The dates are March 24th and 25th.
I want to try to come March 24th and 25th because that'll be the first
Great.
time I ever meet Nurkish in person.
You'll have to wear a mask though, because you just said we're going.
I know. They'll know who you are now.
You go behind the scenes, you know.
Oh,
Jeez.
what a terrible idea this whole show is. What a fiasco. What a car wreck.
It's like you guys don't know what it's like living in the world now and having a real job.
Yeah, Nurkish has a real job and he can
Yeah.
get canceled because he's only done foul material on his YouTube channel.
No, not only.
You'd be ashamed. If you saw it, you'd be.
I
you
think
wouldn't
it's
even-
also that I just don't like culture. You know, like I don't think it's just if I express any of the opinions I have more cleanly, I don't think it'd be more palatable.
He used to make fun of deformed people.
No. You're being a little extreme with that. All right.
So Amy, talk about Stand to Reason. Talk about what you do. What's the big deal over there?
So what we do at Stand to Reason is we help Christians think more clearly about what they believe, and we help them be able to explain it to other people. And it's been around. Actually, this is our 30th anniversary year. So we've been around for 30 years. I've only been there for like 16 or 17 years now. But what I do now is I do a podcast with Greg Kokel. It's called
Stand to Reason.
Well, there's a Stand to Reason one, and then the one I do with him is called #STRask. And
So people can ask any question they want about theology in the Bible, they can ask.
Yes. So they send in their questions, and then I collect them, and then I ask Greg, and then we talk about them. And then then Greg has his own show. It's just called Stand to Reason, and that's twice a week for an hour, and people can call in. So that's a live show situation. And then we have a website, and I write for that. I edit. I answer the questions that people send in.
STR.org.
What else do I do? STR.org. We have speakers. I don't do a whole lot of speaking, but we have several speakers on our staff, and they go around and speak at universities and churches and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah, we love J. Warner Wallace, Cold
Yeah.
Case Christianity, and all that. All you guys are good. It's all good.
Yeah. And I love talking to people. And I was so happy, Nurkish, when Doug told me last night. I'm just really happy. And I'm so honored that I even had a chance to talk to you and be part of it. Like I feel so humbled by that and so honored. And it was a few years ago. And I remember I was so surprised when I heard from you like a few years later, and you had sent in a question, and you couldn't believe I remembered you. I'm like, of course I remember you. I talked to you for like 2 hours on Doug's show.
Yeah.
But I assume that's more like, I just assumed anybody Doug had on the show was more like a favorite of Doug. And then, you do this for a living. So I assume you're just kind of going, I don't know, like, why I talk to another non-believer. Like, it's not, it's just another day.
Like he just sees you, like he thinks you see them all as a number, Amy. Like these are all just.
No, I of course I remembered you, and I've been praying for you. And so I'm just thrilled. And I just really wanted to come on and say that and say congratulations and welcome. And I'm just really happy.
Well, thank you. I mean, I do. I mean, I always told Doug, I think you were the best person speaking on it that he's had on the show, So
See? Look at
you have the most convincing argument.
You've got credibility, girl.
I mean, Doug's mostly like, just repent now.
I know. That's why I pawn you off on Amy for the deep stuff. I'm the tip of the spear.
It's like
she's got to do cleanup.
Doug's approach is basically like the that Bob Newhart skit where he was like a therapist and his
Stop
whole thing
it.
was just that's Doug's. Where it's just like okay, thanks.
Stop.
So
Well, you can save up all the questions you still have, and I'm happy to answer those when I see you, hopefully.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I was telling Doug, I mean, it's not like I don't know. I always felt like when it happened, it'd probably be more like illuminating or something, or I'd like not put to rest all my questions, but I'm like, I still have questions or logistical things. I'm like, what does that mean? What? But it's almost like undeniable. I don't know how to describe it. It's, like once you have something metaphysical or like spiritual happen, it's kind of like your heart knows it, and then your mind's still going like, well, and it's like I do accept it, but I do have questions, and I don't want to put those to rest just in the sense that I feel like I have to be honest with it to keep it fresh and, true. So, I don't think that'll ever go away. I feel like that's probably another thing that will keep me reading and, listening and watching things. Because I think that's how people sometimes can fall into just saying they're Christian, not really doing anything. You just kind of like do lip service, which I think it could be off-putting to an atheist. But yeah.
Well, the good thing about, having questions is people have been thinking about this for 2,000 years. So there are a lot of really good answers out there. People, I think sometimes atheists think they've come up with something that's going to put Christianity away forever, but somebody has thought about it. I guarantee you somebody's already thought about it.
They end up with the Epicurean question that's like 3,000 years old. They think it's new. They're like, how can a good God create evil?
Well, but at least they're thinking about it. That's
going,
great.
Dude, that was like 3,000 years ago. It was answered a long time ago. They're like, I just came up. Oh yeah, how does a good God allow suffering?
It's all like George Carlinism, though. That's the thing. Like I grew up with George Carlin, and I used to like him a lot. But like the older I get, the more I look back, and I'm like, I used to think so. George Carlin's early stuff was very silly, Seinfeld-y, and then in the '90s he became the edgy old man everybody knew. And when I was a kid, I thought it was inverse. So I was like, oh, his old stuff stinks and his new stuff's cool. But now as I get older, I'm like, no, his good stuff, like, is the old stuff where he's talking about hair. And his old stuff stinks because it's just kind of stuff you would hear from like a junior high school student or something. It's like, God's an invisible man or something. You're like, okay, I guess. I don't, it's not really compelling arguments.
I'm angry there's only 133 people watching now. I've had thousands. If I took a poop...
I told you this. Doug thought this was going to be a big deal.
If I pooped and I painted Trump's name on it, I would have about 20,000 people watching right now.
Doug needs, you have to do like Trump's going to win again in 2024 or some other political thing,
Politics.
It doesn't matter how many people are there. See. If the people who are here are the ones who want to hear, then those are the
all
ones
you Christians, I get
it. It's only when you can take credit for it, Doug. So like you want to make a stream to celebrate me becoming Christian, but then like, if it's only 100 people watching,
someone feed my fragile ego right now.
I do remember that line in the Bible though, where Jesus was like preaching, and then there's like 10 people, and he's like, I don't want to bother with this. Yeah. It's like, I get out of here.
And no miracles.
This was like 100 people. I'm not doing this.
No, it was their lack of faith that very few came.
I've been watching The Chosen, so that I heard one of the things they embellished was the size of the people, the attendees. Yeah.
He's been watching The Chosen.
It's not bad. It's not a bad show.
Yeah, I saw the first season. I haven't seen anything past that. I need to catch up on that.
I mean, I think
liked the first season.
Yeah, you won't believe where it goes. He drives a car.
For you guys, it'd probably
the
be
second
dumb,
season,
but for like a new Christian, it's not bad. I don't think it's bad.
He's popping wheelies on a bike in the second season.
They do. Well, they do the like big reveal. So like you have a character and be like, oh, my name's Judas, and that's like dun dun. Like they'll say a name drop, and then it's like, oh, that's
him.
Yeah. And then they also made like there's odd choices, like Matthew's autistic, and I don't know. Like they just do things. I'm like, I guess maybe it's to make it more relatable or whatever. I don't know. But
that's why Matthew's able to count all of the loaves and fishes like in 2 seconds.
Well, that's what they tried.
12 baskets, definitely 12 baskets.
For the more detailed scripture, they go to Matthew. That's what they said, because he's good at being autistic or something. So there you go. In my head now, he'll just always be an autistic guy.
It's terrible.
No, it's a good show. It's not bad, especially for like a religious show. It's tough to like walk that line.
Yeah, that is the danger. Like in your head, you will be seeing that forever. So it's going to be tricky to figure out what's actually in the Bible and what's in the show. And I'm not saying you shouldn't see the show. I actually really did like the first season, but that is the one thing you have to keep in mind.
It starts running that version of them. I do the same thing when I saw Passion of Christ. It's like, all of those images end up coming up in your head when you're reading the scriptures. Or it's like Lord of the Rings. You know,
Yeah,
you
yeah. I
watch-
was gonna say Lord of the Rings. You start casting them in your head
I'm
with
going
like
like,
Viggo
I read the
Mortensen.
book before Lord of the Rings, the
Yeah.
movie came out, and it was, that's not what Gimli looks like.
But I mean, do you think like Christ is really gonna be like, well, no, Matthew doesn't look like that? You know, like, do you think
Well.
that is as important that he's kind of just going like, Matthew didn't look like that South Asian guy? Like, is that important to him?
It's
No, I mean,
entertainment casts a powerful
it depends
spell.
on how well they do at making the show. And like I said, I haven't seen it, but that, I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't see it. I think that can be helpful. And then just keep in mind that as you're reading, to kind of, because you can get things stuck in your head, and then
Yeah, get out of that
you
show,
don't
man.
realize it's not actually in the Bible.
Oh well, no. I mean, as somebody who's obviously, I haven't finished the Bible, but I mean, like, you can pretty much tell the liberties they take with certain things. Like, they try to inject humor a lot, and the reveals and the odd little character quirks they give people. I mean, I think just watching media, you could kind of tell what they've done. You know, outside.
So were you watching that before you? So you were watching that before you were a Christian, right?
I guess before I like officially, like jumped on board, but not that long before. Like, I don't know. I've been watching on and off. It's not, I don't binge shows really. So it's like, I watch the episode when I have the time. So over the course of, I don't know how long it's been out.
It's like watching musicals before you come out of the closet.
What would you do if I was like, The Chosen was really the reason I became Christian?
So wait,
But it wouldn't surprise me that people got saved from The Chosen.
Yeah. So then, I mean,
Yeah,
that
me
would say
either,
like
yeah.
a net positive, right?
Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
not, as a writer, I'm just saying, like, history and accuracy doesn't make great entertainment. Like, if you walked around with a movie camera of the actual historical Christ and the events, there's probably all kinds of padding and things in there that they didn't write down that wouldn't make compelling stories. So they have to make it a compelling show to work with ratings and drama and a sweep and a build and all that stuff. And then your mind, when you're reading the scripture, you're reading history. So you're applying, like, this thing that was built to entertain is getting kind of stuck on top of a document that's meant to tell you how the events rolled out. So I just think,
well, I mean, wouldn't that's kind of true, like Renaissance art, though, in a sense, right? Like, so like a lot of the storytelling that came from like that is kind of stuck onto the Bible now.
right?
So, I mean,
But
would you say that's
Michelangelo's
damaging?
David, I never picture David looking like that.
No, but like
That
the
thing looks
Sistine
like an
Chapel,
alien.
like, is God ever described as just having a big beard? Like, just like he's an old man with a beard? I don't think, right? Like, right? I mean,
No,
that's
it's
kind of
not
been like it. So it's just through that it's probably through that it kind of just got plastered onto that. So I mean,
let me ask a question. If you're going back over something you already talked about, because I missed the beginning, you can stop me. But I'm really curious, Nurkish, if the line when you became a Christian, was it because you didn't believe it was true and then believed it was true, or is it because you didn't follow Christ and then you wanted to follow Christ? If that distinction makes sense to you.
oh, are you so it's kind of going like, is it like a feeling over like logic? Is that what you're saying?
Well, was it that you didn't think it was true and then you did think it was true? So like, was it a change in your belief about being true, or was it a change in your desire to follow
I think
Jesus?
the desire was probably before. So I'd always assumed I could rationalize my way there and then just take a small leap, which is not the case. It wasn't me reading a series. I mean, I did read and listen to you guys and listen to other people and thinkers. So it's not like I just read my way there and then I was like, oh, okay, I shortened the chasm and I just got to make this little baby jump to get to Christ from God. Because you can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I mean, you could kind of, but not really, not in the way I thought you
He
could.
revealed himself to you as real, because the only guy that I've heard of that's made that logical leap is J. Warner Wallace, who followed evidence. I've heard his testimony before, and there's very rare people that are like, I was an atheist and I read all the arguments and I used reason and logic, and I got there. It's usually, I know this Jesus now and I follow him.
I would almost say that's not a good grounding for that, though, because then what's made with logic can always kind of be undone through deception or something like that. So it's like what's true in your heart or what you believe seems a lot more, you have more conviction with that because it's an
And Greg has
absolute
called
rather
himself
than.
an evidentialist, Amy, that he follows the
Well,
evidence where it leads. So where's he at on that?
well, I think your mind has to be behind it if you're going to stick to it. You can't just go by some kind of feeling, because things are going to come along and you're going to doubt and you're going to have questions.
Yeah, you lose
And
the
if you don't
feelings.
have that,
You lose the feelings pretty quick.
if you don't have
Sure.
that
I'm scar tissue.
foundation, you can't. You won't have the endurance that you need. Like in my case, I became convinced Christianity was true, but there was an actual moment when I felt like I woke up and like I saw God for who he was and I loved him. It was kind of a turning in my whole orientation in life. That came after me being convinced that it was actually true. But I think those were both part of it, but the change happened like after I thought it was true, rather than I thought it was true and that's what suddenly I was following Jesus. Does that make sense? The difference?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose I just feel like I don't know. I think logic, because it just feels like it could always be done if you're doing it. I mean, like I think you have to marry the two. You can't just be like going
Yeah, I
a
agree.
blind
Yeah.
feeling, because then that'll just make you like a zealot or a fanatic of something. But then you also can't just follow like, I mean, whatever, because it seems like knowledge-based things can always kind of shift, and all it would take is one kind of dubious thing or doubt to be placed in there, and then you could just fall off. And that seems like if some document came out that, I don't know, refuted Christ to an extent, would that be enough to rock you off the boat? And then 10 years, 20 years later, it's like, oh no, that wasn't accurate. Know what I mean? Like it shouldn't be enough just based on logic to kind of.
Well, there's something real that happens spiritually to you because you're changed. If God changes you, I mean, your mind is involved, but you're actually changed. So there's something spiritual that happens in you. So it's not just that I'm only resting on this intellectual reason. It's that I've actually changed so that I can see God and I follow him and I love him.
The Bible says you become a new creation.
It feels like being in a new reality, and then you're trying to make sense of that reality. Like you're still trying to, like a new dimension's open up, or you're in a new experience, and you're just trying to make sense of that experience. So it's like the experience is important, and the logic of making sense of it's important, but it's not all just external stimuli. That I don't know how to put it. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like I couldn't get there the way I thought I would.
And Amy, you have guys that witnessed the miracles and they didn't believe.
Mm-hmm.
Like they saw crazy supernatural events and they didn't believe. So that you'd say, well, logically he'd put it together that he had this authority. And so it starts to imply that it's a moral choice.
And I mean, also it's something spiritual. Yeah.
I have to plug my computer in, so I'll be right back, guys.
That's what you did.
Technical problems. I love this
devil.
in the middle of deep theology. Why? We're slaves.
You don't do streams anymore. I was going to say, this is probably a long stream for you, right?
Yeah, I'm just here. I don't care.
Oh, some people are saying that The Chosen is dangerous for new believers. I think maybe it is. I don't know. I literally don't watch any shows or TV or movies outside of what I watch with my children. I've been inundated since I was a kid. Like I was basically like cable guy growing up. I just watched nothing but TV and movies. Yeah. That's what raised me. So I think I'm very like sensitive to what they're doing, like the layout and that, like I could see the threadbare of it. So it's, to me, I'm like, I see what they're doing. I don't, I'm not being just sucked in, but I do think it's a decent storytelling thing,
So I was going back, I was saved first, and then I had a crisis of faith because it was just my feeling and trying to believe. And I did apologetics in the 90s and went on like a quest of truth where I just said, if it's not true, I'm not going to believe it if I'm not convinced. And I became a convinced Christian, and that was a very different thing than what I was before. So it's like my heart may have always been saved, but something different happened when I went back and looked and engaged my mind.
But it's like a sense.
Like it held up,
It feels like a sixth sense, like the religious thing, and it's so you need input for it, and then you kind of have to make sense of that and understand it. But it's like that doesn't, it needs to be there, or at least that's how I feel. But I just, It is different than I thought. I thought I'd have all this, like, by the time it happened, or if it happened, I'd be able to like talk to Doug about all these people I'd read and like stuff. And it's not. I don't really have much to go like. Well, Chesterton said this, and so said that, and that based on this, it's not. I mean, I've read quotes and things like that. That I don't know. I like them, and they make sense and stuff, but it's not.
It's something supernatural, and God brings people in all sorts of different ways. But the nice thing is, now that it's happened, you can go back and you can learn more. And that just gives you the endurance that you're going to need to go through life. So,
yeah. And it makes sense on a different level. Like I could read, like everyone reads like the Chronicles of Narnia, right? As a kid, say, before they're saved, and it means one thing. And then you get saved and you read it again and it means something completely different.
Yeah, Clavin just did a book about that, like how the God narrative, Jesus narratives, and everything. And I want to actually read that because I want to see what he feels like he's well read on that.
Yeah. Did you choose? Here's Sam Moreland. Did you choose God or did God choose you? And it's both.
Well, that would go back to what, like the Calvinism thing. Is
it's
that right?
Calvinism thing. He definitely chooses you, but I don't think this is my beef against Calvinism, which, as you know, I have many beefs with it, Amy. But I'm way warmer to it than ever before. But my thing is that I don't think God made our free will meaningless, or it's not an accident or an artifact. I think he respects it and it's real. So yes, he must choose you so that it's a gift and it's nothing that you would do. But at the same time, everyone knows at some point, like C.S. Lewis says, at one point I was not a believer and then I was. Like something about you become one. It's not that it's 100% under your control, but it's definitely something that you do. And it's not that you're rewarded for that decision that is your salvation. But there's a you in the mix doing something.
I almost feel like it's not like you're choosing. It's more like you're relenting.
Yeah.
Like you're just letting go.
You
surrender. So it's not like you're choosing like what door do I need to open. It's more like you're clinging on for autonomy and kind of you're driving and then you just kind of let go.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was full on determinism. It wouldn't surprise me. If it was full on R.C. Sproul, you could do no other. It wouldn't surprise me. How's that?
Well, maybe we shouldn't get into the Calvinism.
No, it's funny. This is
and
the
have
only
a debate right now.
This is the only interesting thing happening on YouTube right now. We're the only channel in the entire world doing anything interesting on YouTube. Everyone else go to some other channel to watch someone cook. You know this is where the heat is. Go, Amy. Get into it.
Calvin, and because I would consider myself a Calvinist, it's not that we don't have a will and we're not making decisions. Here's how I describe it, because we have kind of a way of seeing this. When you look at the way Scripture is, okay, so if the Bible is actually inspired by God, what you have is you have two things happening. You have the writers, right? And they're writing, and you can see their personalities. They're making choices. They're writing specific things out of what they want to write. But at the same time, God is superintending the process so that they are writing every word that he wants them to write.
That's right.
So both are existing.
He's not leaving it up to their free will to guess and get it right.
Yeah, they're not guessing, but they are acting. They're truly acting. You see their personalities, but God is working through them. It's not like he's dictating and they're just writing it down each word. They're actually making choices, but those choices are being superintended by God so that their choices really are coming from them, but they're not outside of God's sovereignty.
Yeah, and their personhood is coming out in their writing too, because they have different approaches. The approaches are all over the place in the different ways that they act. Yet it's all authoritatively God's word.
So in the case of salvation, you have God opening our spiritual eyes so that we can see. We are blind and then we can see. And that is when we act on that. But the original changing of, like you're saying, Nurkish, the idea is that it was kind of It wasn't like you were just relenting. It was God pulling you along, and then you act on that. But he was the one acting behind that. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's. I don't want to confuse you.
Well, no, I mean, it's, I think also our notion of like freedom is really kind of not, I mean, people say freedom, they mean absolute freedom. And it's like, nobody has that. You know what I mean? So this idea that God will work in a framework that where it's like, I gave you absolute freedom. It's like, you don't have that. You don't have that based on genetics. You don't have that based on where you grew up. You don't have that based on, you know, the circumstances of your life. So it's, you know, our illusion. I feel like our idea of freedom is a bit of an illusion. So I do feel like there is, you know, God working. It's like, yeah, freedom. But
wait, here's a $20 super chat that's all about me. James Tiberius Kirk. Man, I love James Kirk from the original Star Trek.
Wow, you've got some fans there, Doug.
James T. Kirk, $20, Australia. Hi, Doug. Big, all caps. This is all caps, therefore it's authoritative. Hi, Doug. Big fan from Australia. I follow all kinds of pundits, probably even Greg Kokel. And you really rise above the noise. Love your style, mate. Peace and God bless you. That is very kind of you to say. Thank you.
Is this a thing I should get into, Doug? These kind of like short political things, or, you know, you just talk about Carrie Lake or whatever, or whoever. What are you doing? What are your videos? I don't watch your political stuff.
My videos are almost all Carrie Lake.
Okay. The Carrie Lake show. It's like Ricky
My
Lake.
channel is the Carrie Lake channel.
Okay.
That's why they're all upset that I'm talking about something else besides Carrie Lake. No,
Talk
actually,
about how
I
God
covered her
relates to
faith.
Carrie Lake. Boo.
I covered her faith. Shut up. It's the YouTube channel is so weird because of how the algorithm connects you to an audience. And in my case, it connected me through like Carrie Lake. So it only buries the needle on Carrie Lake. Like I can do the most genius commentary, which is what I do often. And no one will watch it.
You get the audience you deserve, Doug.
You get the audience you deserve. Be careful what you wish for.
This is like gonna be doing as a like 80-year-old man.
Yeah, it's true. Here's a Kamala Harris. I should have done a Kamala Harris channel.
My kid brought home because it's, you know, Black History Month. She brought home like a coloring page, and it was like Kamala Harris. I didn't even recognize her. It was such an odd coloring page. I thought it
What
was
color
white.
did you color her, Nurkish?
She didn't color her. It's just like she drew something on the other side. But I was like, who's that white woman? Like she wasn't colored. You know, like there was no color on her. So like the image they drew just looked like a weird generic woman. And I was like,
Amy,
who is
doesn't this
that?
conversation already make you uncomfortable? Even talking about coloring and all white drawing of Kamala Harris. Doesn't that make you?
Well, I mean, all coloring pages are all
Don't
white.
get me fired, guys.
I'm just saying, it's not a race thing. I'm
Look
just
how
saying
afraid she even works for a ministry.
Yeah,
She knows she's
and
going
then
to
you're
lose her
telling
job any
people-
second.
Yeah. So
Does Greg Kokel have human resources that you have to report to if you said something wrong? Would you have to go and report? Does he have human resources?
I guess somebody must be doing that. I mean, I have a boss.
Oh, I love it.
We just have to be careful because if we talk about candidates, we get audited. And that's what happened to us a few years ago. And it was a nightmare.
Right. So give us the law on that, just because for the political people, they'd be interested in that. So you're a 501c3, you're a ministry, tax write-off load, right?
Yeah. So you're not allowed to, I think the rule is you're not allowed to campaign for a specific candidate. So we'll talk about issues and things that have to do with, you know, bioethics and things like that. But what happened was Greg said the name of a politician when he was talking about this particular policy that he was discussing, and people complained. And I don't think I don't think we got in trouble, but we had to do all this work and get audited because of that. And so now
you operate out of California, which is even worse.
Yeah.
You've got
it wasn't fun.
You have like one shoe dropped. You're waiting for the other one to drop any day on that stuff in California.
Yeah, you got out, but we're still here.
Well, I just love you guys. I miss you guys.
Oh, we love you, Doug. I miss you. I don't see you very often anymore.
I know. Well, we got to do more of these shows.
Well, that's also, you know, come on, Doug.
I know. He's trying to get me to go to Philly. I have like I hate traveling. I hate going anywhere because I'm an old curmudgeon now. And Nurkish is trying to trick me into going to this Philly event that I want to go.
Bring your kids. Bring your kids.
That's a good idea. I might bring my son. Right?
How old is he now?
Oh man, he's like 15. He's almost 16. So
Yeah,
he'll
he's
be perfect.
He's the right age.
Let-
Yeah.
In fact, the one that we went to in Orange County, I think I brought Ed back when he was maybe 12. He goes, "That was the best time I ever went to, Dad."
Aw. Yeah, it's like junior high through college is the target audience.
Oh, that'll be
But it's
perfect for
just,
Nurkish.
I'm
But
not
the
the one
website-
who.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna make fun of what Doug does for it, like his claim to fame. I'm not the one who makes toys and video games for
No.
kids, Doug. I have a real job,
Uh,
I didn't get famous for making video games.
I think we have to make Nurkish go on stage at the event and rap.
No.
Make him
Oh,
rap.
yeah. I'm sure Greg will love
We
it.
won't make you do that. Don't worry.
It'd be so awesome. Just embarrass him. Well, I didn't know Greg was going. That's great.
Yeah. He's speaking. He's speaking on tactics.
Love it. I love him. All right. Anything else? Anybody? We
Was there 10 people now, Doug?
What?
Is there 10 people now in the chat? 12 people? What we got left? You scared
This is
everyone
the
off?
remnant. I only care about the remnant now. 129. You guys are
Oh.
still hanging in there. The remnant.
There you go.
You guys are all real people. Everyone else are fake.
Mm-hmm.
126. 3 of them just left.
Yeah, there you go. See? It's like the
Well, how
old
long have you
days,
been
though.
going now?
Some
Was it?
2 hours.
Oh, yeah, this is a 2-hour show now. This is the
Yeah.
longest stream I've been on in probably 4 years.
Yeah, it's like the old days, Doug. Don't you miss this? Talking to nobody.
No, I do my political ones, and seriously, I'll get like 10,000 people. And
Yeah.
like a ton of super chats.
No, sorry, I couldn't make you more money.
No, what I want to do, because Amy, this is my theory on YouTube, is like if the Apostle Paul was alive today and he had YouTube, like it would be immoral for a Christian to not go on YouTube and not share the gospel with the whole world. You have the world's largest broadcasting network in the world for free. Like to me, I want to do like a channel and preach and like to talk and Bible study and have guests on and all that for people.
Do you do?
Oh.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to clarify to the audience that I'm not calling you guys nobody. I'm just saying for Doug's size of channel, I'm mocking his hubris that he would probably call that nobody because he has such a big channel. Okay,
I'm huge. I'm huge. I get like I don't know, it's like 30 million views a month.
See, so there you go.
So if I preached, I'd be one of the most popular preachers in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important.
So do you ever do that? You never do that? You never?
No, I do. I share the
Wow.
gospel here. It's
Okay.
very rare. I got to slip it in between the politics. I do little 3-minute videos. So it's like, hey guys, repent, jerk.
Yeah, stop it.
Yeah, stop it.
Stop it.
Just stop. Here's patriotic gestalt for $5 super chat. Thank you, sir. Here's go on Rumble. Nurkish. We got to talk about Rumble. The Calvinist. I'm sorry, I cannot freely choose to go to Rumble.
Oh.
I've been ordained not to go on that flop show. Guys, I got bad news about Rumble. Let me tell you. about Rumble.
We're gonna get real now, Amy. Here we go.
It is the worst platform in the world. I'm rooting for them to win so bad because it's the only
I
place
don't even know what it is.
It's
She's
like
a
YouTube-
normie, Doug. She doesn't know all this stuff. You
You're a-
can't.
You're a boomer.
I
It's-
can't. I do Twitter, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's like Twitter, but less people see it. So Rumble does not have an algorithm that connects an audience with a show. So no one can find anything. Their search is terrible. It's good if you already have built a following on YouTube and you go over to Rumble, but otherwise it is a complete cut off ghetto. So I will take an exact episode and put it here on YouTube, and it can get like 120,000 views. And I put it on Rumble, it'll get 250 views. So Rumble's where I go when I don't want someone to see something. Is how I put it.
Is it video or is it written?
Yeah, it's video.
It's trying to
Oh,
be
okay.
YouTube. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like
Got it.
conservative YouTube. But I feel like they never work out the kinks with that stuff. You got to walk the line between. I've seen Rumble, and it's kind of like it's not as busy. But then you have the alternatives that are like BitChute, where it's just insane people.
Yeah, it says Rumble doesn't censor. Actually, they do censor because no one sees your channel. They might as well be the most censorious organization in the world because they let you say anything you want, but no one sees it. So
Yeah, so it's like a ball pit. It's just like a containment. It's like yeah, you could say whatever you want to nobody. Like,
yeah,
there
it
you
would
go.
be like
Say-
if YouTube just took 99% of my views and threw them in the trash. We'd call that censorship. Well,
Yeah, but
Rumble,
it's-
the entire platform is built to do that.
It's the illusion of freedom. That's what you wanted. You got your precious freedom to say what you want in your ball pit.
And
at
I do. I love
McDonald's.
going on
There you
Rumble
go.
because I can say anything I want about all the things that we're not allowed to talk about here on YouTube, which
And
is a ton of
nobody's
stuff.
watching.
And no one's watching. It's like, so take your pick, everybody. You get free speech, but no one sees it, or complete censorship and everyone sees it. That's your
takes
choice.
Consequences. But well, it's
Been a lovely night.
Doug was certain this would be huge that his friend became Christian, which I think it's big. But it's not that big viral video you thought it would be, Doug.
That's stupid.
Well, I don't know. I just feel my faith slipping if you don't go to the thing in Philadelphia. I'm sorry. I don't know.
All right,
I don't even know if you don't
I'll
go.
come to sustain your faith. It's like holding up the arms of Moses. Or whoever that guy was. I'll hold your arm up. Amy will hold up the other.
It'll be the feet in the sand or whatever.
Yeah, the footprints in the sand
Yeah,
that
there you
left
go.
you. That was when I didn't. That was when I didn't go to Philly.
That's why I went to Philly and
Where
complained.
were
all
you,
the-
Doug? That's when I didn't go to Philly. Footsteps in the sand. All right. Well, this has been Doug in Exile. This is the season finale of Saving Nerkish and we have a special guest, Amy Hall from Stand to Reason. And there's a big Philly event coming at the end of March that I'm pretty sure I'm going to go to, and Nurkish is going to go. But I'm 90%, 95%.
Like all they would have to do is just look for two freaks, like two tall freaks walking around.
We will
It's not like
we
it's
will
not-
be the tallest people
See,
there.
no, now that you've ruined this, Doug. I had something good and then you ruined it.
You're going to lose your job.
Well, you better at least introduce yourself to me because
Yeah,
I'll
I'll
be
have
really
to be-
sad.
Oh
if
no,
you
we're
come.
going to go out, Amy. We're going to go hang.
Okay, good. Okay.
We're going to go hang. It's going to be great. We're not going to tell Greg either, so we can have fun. You're not going to tell. Don't tell the boss. No, Greg and I hang. We talk all the time.
You know
All
we
the
have a
time.
lot of fun after these things, Doug. You've come to our
I have.
after parties before.
They're great. The greatest people I've ever met and had a ball with. So, yeah, I look forward to it. So we get a hotel. We have to get a hotel and like stay in some dump in Philly.
Look, I'm sorry, it's not up to your standards.
Smells
It's not
like
in
urine
Philadelphia,
in the
like proper.
stairwell.
You're not like it's not Demolition Man outside or anything. Like it's just actually Demolition Man would be like good and clean.
I'm gonna
It's
go
not,
buy.
it's not like Mad Max outside.
I got to buy a Kevlar vest.
Yeah, I think it's
It's
slightly
like an
outside.
hour outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not
Yeah.
you're not dealing with scary stuff, Doug. I know how scared you are of big cities.
It's not that. It's that I hate people.
No, just like Jesus.
It's not, you don't understand. It's not Philly. It's I hate people. Okay. This has been. We're gonna go. Well, you guys can stay on for a second, but we'll end the show.
Let's do the Doug show.
Yeah, if you guys haven't repented yet, get in there and.
Stop it.
I just,
Yeah.
well, I'm ahead. This has been Doug in Exile.